Hi, I'm Mark Robson from Kōtare Models, and you are listening to Beyond the Box Art.
Hiya Benchmates, this is Beyond the Box Art, the official podcast of the International Plastic Modelers Society UK. Please welcome your host, Paul Pendleton-Brown, and joining him this episode are Mike Baldwin, Dan Brazil, Luke Flynn, James Nevitt, and Paul Wong. And we are joined this episode by Martin Drayton from Emdee Scale Models and Mark Robson from New Zealand.
Hello Benchmates and welcome to episode 9 of Beyond the Box Art, the official podcast of IPMS UK. The one place where half-finished models go to multiply and where sensible advice comes with a heavy dose of lacquer fumes. Now, episode 9 is a bit special. We've not got one interview, we've got two brilliant guests joining us. First up, he's the man behind Emdee Scale Models, known for his jaw-dropping builds and that legendary Facebook page where styrene sorcery meets endless humour. It's the legend himself, Martin Drayton. Following Martin, we cross the hemispheres to join our next guest from the land of long white beards and even longer sprues. We're thrilled to welcome Mark Robson from Kōtare Models. Yes, Kōtare, the team that brought us that gorgeous 132nd Spitfire and made modelers worldwide suddenly find room in their stashes where there hadn't been any before. Mark dropped some news on the recently announced 148th Halifax and some exclusives about not only this, but what's coming soon. Before that, we've had a very pleasing message come in on our Facebook from a reclusive OAP we will just call Tim from the city of Bath in the UK. He wrote, "Hi, just wanted to say how much I enjoyed the interviews on the podcast, in particular the one with Mick. So much to learn, but also so much that was familiar. Clearly a driven and inspiring character, but essentially an enthusiast, one of our own. I was especially intrigued by his defence of the new technologies and the responses from your colleagues, as we saw the first full-colour 3D prints demonstrated at the design studio nearly 10 years ago now. Of course it's developed and become more affordable in some fields, but it might be a little while yet before it's really in the hobby. But it will. See how, even in the last couple of years, 3D printing has become mainstream hobby, both as a business production tool replacing resin casting and a desktop hobby solution for the more dedicated and adventurous of our members. All I can say is I agree, Tim, and the proliferation of printers and the price point coming down, this is a side of the hobby that's going to just grow and grow, and we'll be keeping a very beady eye on. Oh, and a belated happy birthday, Tim. Hope you managed to download this episode whilst you're on your saga cruise. But for those that haven't listened to episode 8 yet, we learnt so much about Mig the person as well as the company. It's more than worth the effort to have a download and listen. Anyway, please don't leave it just to Tim to message us. Feel free to email us on info@beyondtheboxart.com or send us a DM, and we can hopefully discuss points raised by our benchmates in the future. Right, everyone. Joined this episode by Wongy.
Hello, you missed me.
Who? Boulders.
Hello, everybody.
Dan.
Hi, everyone. I slept past the bouncers again.
And Luke.
Hello.
So grab a brew, clear some space on the bench, or at least push the sprue aside so you've got room for Wongy's biscuits, and join us as we talk shop, share stories, and celebrate the joy of plastic modelling with two fantastic guests. This is Beyond the Box Art, and episode 9 starts now.
Beyond the Box Art is proudly sponsored by Ammo by Mig Jimenez. For all your weathering essentials, please visit ammo.es. Please support veterans, service personnel and blue light services through scale modelling therapy. Visit modelsforheroes.org.uk where plastic, paint and purpose come together.
start with what people have got on the bench. And for someone who's been missing in action due to work, we'll start with Luke.
Yes, my apologies about that. The joy of work, I guess. But so I finished off my 272nd Edward Miggs on, I believe, Thursday. The video went up on Friday, so if you haven't watched that, maybe go over onto YouTube. Shameless plug that one.
I've watched it.
It is Mac models. It's Mac models, yes. But anyway, so they are all up and running. So I've had a day hiatus, and I am on to Kōtare's 1:30 so K4, which is absolutely phenomenal. I've been working on it today, day of recording, Saturday, for about 3 hours, and somehow the cockpit is already done. It is just absolutely phenomenal. So, hopefully give me another week and a half and it should all be done. That is the plan anyway, the current build schedule.
And what have you been spending your money on since the last time we spoke?
Let me just make sure I get this correct and get out my email for brilliant order confirmations. Oh, where's it gone? There it is. Nope, that hasn't gone where I wanted it to go. I've been ordering a lot of random bits and bobs, but the main thing which is standing out to me is firstly the Hong Kong models Boston. That was too good looking to say no to. And quite recently, have any of you seen the Daz Work Messerschmitt P1101?
Yes.
With the whole engines out and all that stuff. That is the coolest looking thing ever. So I've also picked that up. I haven't got it in the stash yet, but it is en route. So that is all that matters.
If that's all that you've been spending your cash on, we shall move on to the next person, Wongy.
Oh, hello. As you probably guessed, I wasn't on the last couple of episodes. I've been away. I've been our mank in Hong Kong, funny enough. And with that, I've not done much on the bench, obviously. But I have been shopping.
Well, there's an idea.
So I did a trawl round, I would say, most of the model shops in Hong Kong. And lo and behold, I spent money. But not a lot of it.
That's because your wife was with you.
Yeah. And, you guys have seen that she's not best pleased.
Oh.
But not to worry. But I did say every kit I bought there was far cheaper than back here in good old Blighty.
And she believed you.
She did. And funny enough, I have examples of these things, including kits which I've never heard of, but they were too cheap to walk away from. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So the first one which I looked at, and I've never seen these before, but I'll flash these up in front of you guys now, is 2 Hobby Boss kits, and these are ship kits, and they're in a scale of 1 to 1250. Yeah. Of the USS Harry Hill, or Harry W. Hill, and the USS Arthur W. Radford. So obviously very prominent people in the US, but I just quite like the look of them. And to be honest, a couple of quid each, it would be rude not to do it on the same line, because we've got this 80th anniversary of Tamiya at the Bolton Club at our show, which Mike's busy looking at right now. I bought this for 2 of your English pounds, which is a Tamiya flash trigger.
What on earth is that?
Never heard of it.
There you go.
Is that a drag car?
No, it's actually a battery-powered jet car.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is cool. I like that.
So that was a couple of quid, and obviously you do your research on eBay at the same time.
Yeah.
And I've seen one for about 45 notes on eBay, and it's like, do I build it or do I flog it? I don't know. It's not really my thing, but for 2 quid, it's my thing.
2 quid? Everything's your thing for 2 quid.
So there's that one there. And, oh my God, yeah.
Exactly, Luke, exactly.
Oh my God. You can't even get a 99 flake for that anymore.
Exactly. I also visited a model shop, which you guys might know of. It's called UML, Universal Models Limited. And that shop is effectively Dragon, but they had other kits in there. So they were running a promotion, and I'll show you this now. Dragon produced, back in the day, an Iron Man kit, okay? And this is the one I've got, which is the Iron Man Mark XXXIII. What's that?
33.
About 33.
33. Silver Centurion armor. And the lady who was selling it in the shop, who obviously I speak fluent Cantonese, which is any discount, she sold it to me for £6.
How much on eBay?
Or £6. Funny enough, I think these kits, she said, originally was selling for about £40 back in the day, but because Dragon don't...
It was £70 in the UK.
There you go, £6. So there's that one. And my final purchase...
This is a business masterclass right here, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. Jammy Dodger or what?
Just wait till I tell you the end bit anyway. This particular kit, right, most people would know the... Oh, God, what they call now, Mike? The old Liverpool firm who used to make it. You know, the alien stuff.
Oh, God.
The Halcyon. That's the one.
Halcyon.
Right. Back in the day, Halcyon did a fantastic range of aliens type movie model kits, which went supernova when they actually ceased production. Now, I spotted this funny enough, in a toy shop called Wonderland in Hong Kong. And it's a model 1/12 scale of the Power Loader with Ripley in it. For the you guys who remember Aliens, which is, in my view, one of the best alien movies going, it's the Power Lift Loader which Ripley fights the alien queen. I've just spoiled the film for some people, haven't I? Oh well, never mind. Read about it on Wikipedia. So anyway, this kit, you can't buy the Halcyon kit anymore, obviously, because it's out of production. But this one was sitting on its own, and it was discounted down to £40 from £60.
And for those that can't actually see what you're holding up because it's audio only, he still hasn't learned after 9 episodes, it's the Power Loader from Alien.
Yeah. So there you go. So that's absolute bargain. And all I can say is it was worth the £1,200 to get there.
Yeah, you've had a bargain.
So there you go. So that's my shopping anyway. So I bought loads of bargains. The flight tickets were a little bit expensive to get there. That's all.
Fair enough. And it's not as if you're going to be going back in the very near future with larger suitcases for a longer period of time.
I've had a few people on a certain podcast who've been tapping me on the shoulders.
Funny you should say that.
Wonder who that could be.
Who that could be, yeah.
Okay, Mike, what new model have you started since the last episode?
I haven't started a new model. It's still continuing with the Mark E conversion. As those can see, I have managed to drill panels out on the bottom lower wing. I haven't done much this week because I go on holiday tomorrow. So I've cleared the bench and yeah, I'll be starting when I get back. So I'll be in sunny Bulgaria for a week, enjoy myself, and then come back and crack on with projects that need to be finished for Telford and the Bolton show for 2026.
And again, for those that couldn't actually see what he was holding up, that was an E-wing conversion for a Spitfire in 24 scale that he's working on at the moment.
In 24 scale.
Okay then, so moving on then, Dan, what have you got on your bench at the moment?
3 projects at the moment, because obviously I can only airbrush at the weekends, so I have to strategically plan building and masking and stuff like that. So the Revel Camel Trophy Land Rover project, I've built all the chassis and the axles, and that's all been painted. The floor pan, the seats, the dash, the sort of internal parts of it, that's all done and weathered, painted and weathered. And the figure that is going to go in there, I've had to adapt him. He's from the, I think it's Master Box, 1/24 scale miniature figure. I've had to adapt him. I think I'm going to have to cut his feet off to get it to fit, unfortunately. But you shouldn't see it because the footwells in the Land Rover are so small anyway. So yeah, that's that. The B-17 masked off, and all of the olive drab anti-glare parts on it because it's a natural metal finish, because it's a late G, and the rear fuselage because it's the Little Miss Mischief boxing of it. So obviously the rear fuselage part was actually from an F, which was painted in on olive drab. Little Miss Mischief was actually made up of 13 parts from 13 different B-17s.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's
The real thing.
Yeah, it's a bit of a masking knot. Do you know what? I've really discovered that I don't like masking. It's the one thing. I don't mind doing decals. I don't mind sanding. I don't mind rescribing. But masking, I just think, oh, God, I can't wait to get this done. And anyway, I've chosen something that needs loads of masking. So, yeah, that's fun. And last night and this morning, the little 148 M5 Stuart from Tamiya, that was built and done. I've built it and ready to go. So that's ready for painting. They're just built so lovely. They really are. They're absolutely beautiful things.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that's that for projects. And purchase wise, I'll be honest with you, I think I need to have a bit of a run up now to Telford. So I'm gonna have to take it easy a little bit because I've got quite a few things on the list now for Telford. But purchase wise, I bought some of the little cotton swabs from Tamiya.
Big purchase.
Ooh.
That go to a really sharp point, and I find that they're great for decals, for pushing the decal if you need to push and get a decal to conform, because obviously sometimes a cocktail stick is a bit rough and you're at risk of ripping the decal if you've got solution on it. So these are a bit softer, and actually they're really good for cleaning out airbrush little nooks and crannies as well. And I had to invest in a new pair of curved tweezers because I dropped mine and the point of them deformed so badly that I couldn't really get it back. So I bought the Tamiya HG ones. Now they're a lot thicker in the metal, but they still close to a real nice fine point. And I think because they're a heavier grade, it should stop them from deforming so much, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, don't throw them on the floor.
If HG means high grade or heavy grade, I don't know, but because I do a few different types. But yeah, those were my recent purchases, and yeah, that's it for me.
Out of interest, how much did the Tamiya cotton buds cost? I'm just trying to see who's been the better businessman here.
I'll be honest with you, Luke, I can't quite remember because that was an eBay order. I think they were like £4 or something like that, and you get.
Well done, Paul.
Oh, ouch.
You get 50. I think you get 50, but
Oh, goodness.
that was delivered as well, because obviously the postage just kills everything, doesn't it?
Oh, right, yeah. If we're talking about postage, you have to add the 1.2 grand on top of all your purchases, don't you?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. All I can say is it's quite strange, actually, because when I was shoving everything in, by the way, I had to leave some clothes out. So that's still in Hong Kong, and a pair of trainers. But when I shoved everything into this case and zipped it up and weighed it, it was only 17 kilos.
Wow.
And I had 23 kilos on the... Paul's looking at me now going, why don't you shove more heavy stuff in there? No, he's not.
But did you manage to protect the stuff and stop it from sort of getting crushed, the boxes and whatnot?
Funny enough, I bought some stuff for my son, which was, I don't even know what it is. I bought it. It's like these Japanese soft toy things from some manga cartoon. I don't know what it is. The wife just bought it, but I used them as, should we say, packaging. Yeah, so that worked. But also the trick I've got now, which I've got to a fine tee, which is double boxing the kits. So I would, the kit box, open it up and put it back on itself, and then try and stuff as much stuff in there, including stuff for a certain brownie, into the box, which fitted, which was great. Yeah. And then just try to sort of stack it in a certain way. I'm going to get done at customs next time, I can tell. I'm giving all the secrets away.
Yeah, you'll have to cut this out, Brownie.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just going to pull up this audio segment and be like, explain yourself.
Yeah, can you open this case? Is this all for you, Mr. Wong? Yes, it is.
Post it, they can't track it. They don't know who it's gone from.
Yeah. Oh, God. I know. But it was an experience walking around in the rain and the heat in just visiting these shops. But it's one where at some point in time, I'm going to write down all the experience and where to go. If you guys want to spend that much money on an airline ticket and go out there, at least I can point you out into which hobby shops to look at.
When I fly into Australia and New Zealand next time, I'll stop off in Hong Kong for the first time. I've always wanted to do it, but yeah.
Do it. All I can say is buy a bag while you're there. You'll fill it easy. It's one of those things where it's difficult to actually say, right, okay, this is what I want and I'm going to go here and buy it, because most of these shops it's almost like a find and rummage type shop where you might see stuff which is out of date. I mean, I looked up this Tamiya racing thing, this rocket car thing, and that was produced 20 odd years ago, but you can't get it now. That's the whole reason why the prices have shot right up. But if you look at the kits that are more sort of commonplace, you would struggle to see an Airfix kit over there because it's predominantly Chinese brands, Japanese brands. Tamiya, which is big over there, I actually went into their, what did they call it? The Tamiya Pla
Factory or something?
Factory, yeah. That's it. So I went in there, and some of you guys have seen the video I sent back over to you. My comment was, oh, they only sold to me here.
Bit of a clue in the name.
Was a bit. Yeah, I know. But everything seemed to be very RC orientated. And when I asked them about a couple of kits which Mike was after, they didn't have it. And when I actually, probed them, when you're going to get them in next, it's like, whenever they come. So, hey, that's customer service in Hong Kong. That's all I can say,
It's relaxed, it's fine.
It is. And
just for clarification, when you said RC, did you mean radio controlled or being RC?
maybe both. There's a lot of RC around. Yes, indeed. Just to let you know, when you do buy kits in Hong Kong, in certain shops, they will open up the kit and count the sprues to make sure that you've actually got everything, which is great customer service. But in one of the shops, the young counter servers, she actually counted every part, which I thought, my wife's not pleased.
You sub her out to build it for you, mate.
Yeah, I know. So you're right. So she...
Not pleased she's been there 45 minutes while she's counted 263 parts.
No, hang on a second. Remember who it's for. It'd be 60 parts or less.
Yeah, exactly.
Or less.
Correct. Yeah. So it's a quick count, obviously. But when you buy a kit generally in Hong Kong, if there's bits wrong with it, it's, well, you bought the kit, that's it. So I've got your money.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so there you go. That's Hong Kong for you. What an experience.
For me, on my bench, I have got the Musaru Cup. I've got the Toyota 86 in pieces. I've actually started on it. So those of you on the pods wondering what's going on, yes, work has started. I've also been looking at the aftermarket, what's available. And I must admit, I had absolutely no idea where to look for vehicle components, etc. But I found a few places. There's a dedicated model company in Gloucester called Hero Boy, and they are absolutely fantastic what they've got available for
Hero Boy, yeah.
Aftermarket. So I've hit them quite hard, but obviously we can't say what we're doing to the car, otherwise other people wouldn't have a bit of a clue, and we don't want anyone, shush, quite. And the other purchase, which was actually the better half that decided that we were going to go for this more rather than me, but we now have a Creality K2 Pro Combi 3D printer, which can inject up to 4 different filaments with what we've actually got. In theory, if we bought another 600, 700, 800 quid's worth of add-ons, we could actually add another 12 filaments to it, so that it will print 16 colours in total.
Wow, that is mega, isn't it?
It's getting ridiculous, and it's also going to what was actually talked about by Mig in the last episode, in that in the future you'll be actually printing your own kits at home, pre-painted. But, weathering, everything will be done online rather than actually doing it by hand. But I think that's...
I don't know.
when I listened, you know what? I think, look what we all did with COVID. Everyone went back to stuff, doing hobbies. And I think because of the AI revolution that we are in the midst at the moment, I think that talking to people personally, doing things with your hands, doing things in the real world, I think there's going to be a bit of a revival and more love for that sort of thing. I think there is, yeah. I think we're going to we already do, spend so much of our lives digitally doing things that, do you know what? Opening a plastic, for us guys and girls that do this hobby, opening a beautiful, well-made plastic model kit, Kōtare model, or whoever it is, whatever is your thing. It doesn't matter if it's a Gundam, an aeroplane, a car, whatever it is. Painting some of the beautiful figures, to do something with your hands and your head and get away from the screen for a while, I think will always be there. I really do.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, going back to kind of what Mig was talking about, it very well might happen. However, you've got to think it's probably going to be a niche. We've talked a lot about niches today. You're going to have some people who just love the building. You already have the people who love the building and hate the painting. I'm the complete opposite. I love the painting, hate the building. So it might be a place for it and there will be a niche for it, but very hard to say that the entire hobby is then going to switch, isn't it?
It's just evolving, as Mick kept saying. It is, yeah, it's always evolving. Things change all the time, but then so much does stay the same. And I think that's the grounding for it, isn't it?
Yeah, I totally agree. Codgers like myself will always stick with what I know. Otherwise, I'd have to go down the path of buying a printer, getting all the mixtures right, getting it all poured, making sure the colours are all in place. And it's difficult just operating an inkjet, never mind a 3D printing thing. You're dead right. I'd rather go with...
But you use it to your advantage, don't you? Do you know what I mean? I've got no interest in starting up what I would class as another hobby in 3D printing. But the fact that it's come on so fast and so the clarity and the definition and stuff that you can buy now. And, we all know all these great companies that are in the hobby that you can buy stuff from. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to feel pressured that you need to buy a printer, because there are so many people there that you can buy bits from to enhance your thing. But you can pick and choose. There's nothing wrong with opening up a box and just building out the box. We've all done it. We all do it and we all enjoy doing it. But now and again, we've all got those kits where you think, yeah, I'm going to have a bit of a spend up and I'm going to throw everything at this one. And if it means not buying 2 or 3 other kits and you can buy all of those upgrades and really, really push yourself, because, cutting 3D parts out of the trees and the things that hold them is very different in itself. Cleanup's different. It's another skill to learn, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one thing which I found when I was out in the Far East, if I can use that word, I bought one of these Gundam things. I know. It was a pre-finished kit where all the parts were all pre-finished in individually wrapped sections, and all you needed to do was just connect them together, and it was fully articulated. But the finished kit itself was fantastic, just looking at the box illustrations. And I just thought to myself, okay, that's borderline going down Lego, where it's all finished. You just connect it together and it's giving you that instant lift of satisfaction.
Yeah.
But Luke's right, again, my favourite thing, same as Luke, is to get rid of the build as fast as possible and then use your creative side in terms of how you paint it, if you want to weather it and do all that sort of stuff just before you botch it with the... So it's what I like, that excitement, just in case. Did I actually spray that gloss on? I can't remember. That's old age. But yes, you're dead right. There will always be a place for opening up the box and looking at the pieces and putting them back in the box and shoving it back on your shelf again. I do feel guilty that if you did print it, you got to do something with it then, don't you? It's like too much pressure.
Also, printers create a hell of amount of waste as well, in my opinion. I mean, let me just grab my little... So I've got a bamboo lab, if anyone knows, and it just creates like these huge... Oh, I don't know if you can see that, but it just poops out loads of filament which you can't use. It's like, that feels a bit wasteful.
You can't make sprue goo out of that, can you? Yeah, nuggets.
No, because they flip it and they're like these weird little poos. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's quite funny to watch it and just laugh and say, well, 3D printers pooping.
Please visit beyondtheboxart.com for alternative ways to both listen to the pod and how you can support or help sponsor the show. Think you've heard it all? Think again. Follow Beyond the Box Art on the socials for updates that breaks the boundaries, bends rules, and redefines the ordinary.
Martin, welcome to Beyond the Box Art, and for those who don't know your work, perhaps you can give our benchmates a quick rundown on your modelling CV and a little about yourself.
Yes, well, I'm a Brit, as you can tell, living in the US. I started modelling like most people with their dads, and my dad was from Trinidad, and he had no modelling background, but he was an engineer, so he was really quite interested in it. And between us, we started off, he bought me a Frog Spitfire, a classic kit in 1/72nd.
Been to Telford many a time to get these vintage classics. The vintage ones.
Definitely a vintage classic. And then we made the massive leap to the Airfix 124 scale ME109.
Blimey.
Then after that, I just carried on and was building 90% aircraft, I would say. A couple of odd little ships and a couple of tanks, but it was all aircraft. And I was in the Air Cadets at the time, so I was getting a feed of, actually being around aircraft, which was great. And then, all the usual distractions took over and I stopped modeling. And it wasn't until 2020 when COVID hit, because my wife was high risk, the people that I worked for, which was Delta Airlines, they gave us the option of staying home and collecting unemployment, and they would hold our jobs for us. So I did that. But I didn't have a lot to do at home, and I had a few kits that I had bought maybe 4 or 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years before, and they were just sitting in a closet. And I decided to get them out. I started building those, enjoyed it. My wife then bought me a tank, the really old Tamiya Panther, and I built that and enjoyed it, but it looked odd just sitting on a table. So I Googled how to build dioramas, and it was mostly YouTube that I learned from. Just all the classic people like Night Shift and a bunch of English guys, actually, because it was nice to actually have instructions in English. And I learned quite a lot and just started trying stuff. The other thing was that I started looking at lots of different, not just genres, but completely different areas of modeling, like some of the miniature painters, the shipbuilders, the train guys, because I had no point of reference. I had no start point. So I was just taking information from wherever I could. And I think that really helped me progress quickly.
Okay.
Now, back at work, I'm a flight attendant and a snowboard instructor. And with my flying, I'm probably flying 20 days a month. I suddenly thought, well, wait a minute, I'm losing a lot of modeling time because I can't come home and just disappear and start doing models and just spend family time. So I started taking stuff with me on the road. So when crews see me at the airport and I've got 3 bags and one of them looks like a food bag, there is no food in it. It's all paints and tools.
That's great.
This trip that I just did, I just started on the Yuma Hobbies AV8B Harrier. I've done the cockpit, and it's a great kit in that you can build it in components. So that the bulk of the fuselage is separate, the nose section is separate, the wings are separate. So I could do stuff on all of those and still be able to transport it. So yeah, so that's me now. I'm a traveling modeler.
Have you seen Luke's video on the Harrier?
I have. It's great. And I'm kind of using that as my blueprint. When the kit first came out, they had a video on Andy's Hobby headquarters and it went through. I thought, the Harrier's a plane I love again because being in the Air Cadets and staying on RAF stations in the summer, I saw all these aircraft first time round, Harriers, Lightnings, not Valiant. I'm not that old, but
Sopwith Camels. Not saying how old you are, though.
all Cook and Brown are really nice guys anyway. And I've even washed a Vulcan with 20 other Air Cadets. It's great. So the Harrier was always one that I liked. And I saw that video and thought, you know what? I think I need to get that. And being into dioramas, my first thought was, well, what scene could I put it in? And the first thing I thought of was the movie True Lies.
Oh, fantastic.
And I thought, right, I'm going to adapt some little figures and do a scene. And then an Aussie friend of mine, Sam Dwyer, he saw on a website, well, actually, it was in a chat group out in Asia, where it looked like Uma Hobbies were going to release 3 figures that go with it. They were going to release an Arnie pilot, the daughter hanging on the nose, and the terrorist hanging from the sidewinder. So I wrote to them and said, look, when are you going to release these? And are they coming to the US? And they said, are you a dealer? And I said, no, I'm just a modeler. And this is my page. And they said, we'll get back to you. And then the next thing I heard from them was, you have 3 sets of figures in the mail on the way to you.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, lovely.
So I'm doing that. And then I was at a party with some friends and my wife introduced me to this woman that she knew. She said, oh yeah, her husband used to fly in the military. And I said, oh, what did he fly? And she said, oh, he was in the Marines. It's called a Harrier. And I was like, oh. So I told her about my plans and she said, that's the movie we always quote to people because people never know the aircraft. And then I could see this glint in her eye and I kind of could see where this was going. And she said, could you build one for my husband? So that's the one I'm doing first. And it's a surprise for his wedding anniversary. And I've got a little figure from ResKit of a US pilot that's going to be standing in front of it. It's on the way to me now with his name and the squadron crest and everything on it, and a little bit of airfield that I've then got to paint and weather. So
you're a commissioned modeler now?
I've done a couple, but they've just been for friends for nothing.
Yeah.
I had a friend whose dad was based in East Anglia flying F-111s.
Lakenheath.
And one for him. I've done a couple of little tanks and stuff for people, but I just see it as just experience for me. And I love being able to give people stuff. Now that I'm running out of space with my dioramas, I tend to give them away. I don't sell them. If someone makes the mistake of showing interest in it at one of the clubs I go to, like, there you go.
Haven't some of your dioramas ended up in the museum as well?
Yeah. So one of the guys at the club, his daughter was curator at a museum in Colorado. And she wrote to the club and said, look, I'm looking for exhibits. Is anyone available to have some exhibits? And I was like, yep. So he came and picked them up and he drove them to Colorado. So there were about a dozen of them that I got rid of. Not that you could tell. You look at the space and it didn't look like anything had got. And she, in fact, just wrote to me, this is about 1.5 years later, and said that she's leaving the museum and she's taking the World War II exhibits with her. The Vietnam ones they're keeping, because that's relevant to people who work there. And she's now doing it as like a traveling display. So she's got them in the foyer of the history department of the university in Colorado. And then they'll be going somewhere else permanently to their history department, I think. So that's quite cool.
Are they going to be in cabinets? Because obviously when stuff gets put into a museum or somewhere that has displays, you hope that the cleaner's not going to go in there with a vacuum cleaner and start dusting them off,
She sent me a photograph of the World War II ones as they were in this museum, and they're all in proper glass cases. I'm like,
oh, lovely, yeah.
Wow, they look really good.
That's fantastic.
I was obviously intrigued, Martin. You're saying you work for Delta. I work for one of the small airlines here in the UK. I'm a manager on the ground, but you were saying about how you take models away with you. In episode 2, we interviewed Tim Holland, just as a little plug, And he said when he was away on the aircraft carriers, he almost had a very tiny little setup so that he could literally paint a few parts on like a palette. So I'm just interested, how does that work for you? How does your modeling setup work when you're traveling?
One, I'm not usually a very organized person until it comes to modeling. So what I do when I've got a build, I'll make a step-by-step list of everything I have to do in this build. And then when I'm going to go away, when I have a trip, I look at that list and I'll work out what is feasible for me to do while I'm away. Our armor, I'm learning now, is much easier to travel with than aircraft, with wings sticking out and tailplanes. And they're pretty boxy things, so they're quite tough as well. But I do have like a sandwich box that's solid hard plastic. So anything that's in construction, I'll put in there, and I've got some foam in there and bubble wrap. I've got a lunch bag that literally is full of paints and tools, a wet palette, all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not going to stick on anything with aerials or antenna or anything like that. And it's really handy for me to do like figures. Figures are great to do. Stowage is really easy to transport. I can't break it. And what I will do sometimes with a piece of armor is I'll do the construction on the road. When I come home, I'll airbrush it. Then on the next trip, I'll take it and take all my weathering stuff and I'll weather it.
Ah, right. I see.
And do the oils and then bring it home again. And at each point, it gets to a point where I don't really want to transport it anymore.
No.
Then I start traveling on the road with the next piece that I'm doing.
It seems to give your pieces a bit of historicity, doesn't it? There's a story behind each one.
Yeah. And the thing is, with the hotels, every single hotel room has a desk in it and it's got a lamp. And usually the TV is right next to it. They've got streaming. So I've got YouTube going on and I'm sitting there. No one's disturbing me. I've got access to a hairdryer as well, which obviously I don't normally need. But I use that to dry oils and to dry the kit faster. So I've got everything I need, not getting disturbed. It's a perfect environment. I can whack out 8 hours of modeling, no problem.
It's definitely an art form in traveling modeling.
Certainly. I think the key is preparation, is having everything organized. Once it's organized, it's not that big a deal. And quite often, the trips that I do, I'll arrive at the hotel late at night. So what I'll do is I'll unpack my stuff and I'll set up the modeling stuff, get everything out. I've got a plastic, it's actually a cutting board, and it's a thin one that I got at a dollar store. That is my mat. I put that down, put the paints out, put the tools out, go to bed. Then I get up in the morning, straight away, you're there.
So what paints do you use then?
On the road, I'm using acrylics and it's brush painting. Any airbrushing, I'll do that at home, and I use lacquers at home.
Any particular brand is your favourite?
Not really. I tend to do things by colour. It's like I look at people who've set up their hobby rooms and they've got all the brands separated. But to me, that would take me so much longer to find the colour that I want. I organise my stuff by colours. For lacquers, I tend to use Mr. Hobby, AK Real Colours. I'm just about to, for this Harrier, I'm going to try MRP. SMS, I absolutely love, but it's hard to get here. There's a Gundam store that imports it, so I get it through them. I really do like paints that you don't have to dilute.
Yes.
Because you can't mess it up. And it's going to come out as the manufacturer intended. And like I said, with SMS, that's been great. And I started on that by accident. Someone had some, and for whatever reason, they didn't want it, didn't get on with it. And they gave it to me. And I was like, this is good. It also, when I do stuff with lacquers, when I'm on the road, it makes it more durable as well if I'm handling it.
Makes perfect sense. I'm using MRP lacquers primarily, but they've also now just brought out a range of acrylic as well.
Yeah.
And the advantage of the MRP acrylic is it colour matches into the lacquer perfectly.
Oh, does it?
Where a lot of the lacquers and the acrylics don't actually match when you actually go from the same manufacturer. With the MRP, it does.
Oh, right.
Yes. So it's a really useful little tip. But obviously our sponsor, Ammo, don't do it, so we don't have a problem there.
For brush painting, I use Ammo, I use AK, I know I shouldn't, apparently. I use Tamiya as well. I use Retarder. And people suddenly see people saying, oh, don't use Tamiya for brush painting. And I'm like, why? I'm having a good time with it. It's working.
If you can get it to work and you can get it to do what you need, there's no real rule.
Tamiya paint brush is fine if you just don't touch it.
Yeah.
And then once it's dry, then you can put another coat on. You can't manipulate it and keep going backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. But if you just one stroke, leave it, let it dry, and then carry on.
No, it's a good tip, though.
And I'm a big believer in the wet palette as well. That makes a big difference, I think.
Question is, have you got a Gucci wet palette or have you got a homemade one?
It's kind of both. I actually bought one because, again, being new at the beginning, it was like, oh, wet palette, right, I better get one of those. And I got one, and it's, the normal flat-shaped plastic lid, and it came with some sheets. But once those sheets were gone, and then I saw how much sheets were, I was like, not doing that. So I put some washing up sponges, and I sliced them up, laid them in the bottom of it, and then I got the waxless oven paper.
Yeah, that's it.
And it works.
Go to Costco's.
Branches of the hobby. I use a lot of stuff that is not model specific. Some tools and, bits and pieces like making a wet palette and stuff like that. We have a range of stores here, hobby stores called Michael's. And when I was first doing dioramas, I was getting some stuff from there. They had little packets, for example, they had little packets of lichens and stuff, and they might be $7 or $8. Well, if I walk across the store to the section where they do hanging baskets and all the bits and pieces for that, the same stuff was over there for $5 in a bag 5 times the size. It's scale modeling or hobby related. And so, stuff like that is, you can save a lot of money.
Yeah.
And when you look at some of the things that are sold for modelers, they've basically done the same thing. They just rebranded it.
And put the price up.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you're paying for the convenience of it being potted and sized and all the rest of it.
Well, just keep an eye out for my brand new Modeller's Digestives and other chocolate biscuits, which I'll be selling on the Wongi brand.
Oh, dear.
Make sure you tell the boys that just making conversation about that.
Oh, God, yeah. It's one of those things where a bit like you, Martin, I did a stint where I had to stay in a lot of hotel rooms in terms of work. And when you start having a cup of tea and you build a couple of things and you've eaten your way through the biscuits already before you even know what's going on.
Essentially.
Absolutely.
Martin, you juggle content creation, building and community engagement. Which of these gives you the most satisfaction?
That's a good question. I started my own modeling page on Facebook because I didn't want to be boring my regular friends with this strange hobby that I was now doing. And that's purely the reason I started that. 4 years of that, I've now got 25,000 followers on it. And I love talking to the people who follow my modeling because I'm still amazed that anyone's interested. But I'm getting people who are writing and asking for advice. They've got questions about how I did stuff. And my background has had a lot of teaching in it over the years. I'm a snowboard instructor and trainer. I train instructors as one of my jobs. So many jobs I've done in the past have involved a teaching element. So I really enjoy sharing knowledge. And I think knowledge is to be shared. So I do really enjoy that engagement. And I've got people who I would consider friends now from all over the world who I haven't met and maybe will never meet.
It's like this thing of ours sort of hobby, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, outside, you probably don't discuss it with anyone else, but in our own sort of world,
yeah,
you know who all the names are and you follow all these people and it's so engaging. It's fantastic. It must be so rewarding to do.
And it's funny because 2 days ago, I was flying across the country to Boston and I was chatting with the pilot, and I always ask them if their background is civilian or military. And this guy said, "Oh, military." I said, "What did you fly?" And he reeled off a list of aircraft, including the U-2, the spy plane.
Oh, wow.
And I said, "I know a guy who used to fly the U-2. And he said, "Well, what was his name?" Now, what are the odds? But it's a very specific aircraft. And I told him the guy's name. I said, "Oh, his name's Will. His last name begins with S." And he goes, "Will Skeeters." And I said, "Yeah, that's him."
Blimey.
He said, "Well, how do you know him?" And I said, "We do this scale modeling." And he went, "I'm a modeler." And we knew about 4 or 5 of the same people. And we're showing each other photos from our phones of stuff we built.
It's amazing what sticking bits of plastic together and painting it can do for people, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the job that I do, working with the public on aircraft, you need something at the end of the day just to take you away from all of that. And it does that for me. And it's calming. It's serene. It's something I can do that just blocks out the rest of the world and anything else going on. You can just get lost in it. And I realized that I didn't have a creative outlet in my life. And that's given me that back. It's been great.
And you can take it with you to work.
Exactly.
Scale modelling is full of trends these days, from weathering to 3D printing. Which current trend excites you the most, and which one also makes you quietly roll your eyes?
On a positive side, there are two that really excite me. 3D printing is revolutionizing the hobby, and I'm just amazed at some of the stuff and some of the quality of things that are being produced now, and the level of detail that we can now get on parts that have a 3D shape to them rather than 2D, like replacing photo etch, that kind of thing. I think the only limit with 3D is our imagination. And for me as a diorama person, just the fact that you can now make figures that you really want. You can adapt positions, body positions, expressions, all that stuff. I have some 3D printed figures that are they're mind-blowing. They paint themselves. The other thing that I really enjoy, and it's my favorite part, is the painting and weathering. I think the weathering, because when I was making kits as a kid, just so that the paint didn't wear off, I used to build them, gloss them, so that when I was playing with them, the paints wouldn't come off. So they were just all super glossy. I mean, they'd be stick a gloss varnish on the end of it. But so weathering, when I started back 5 years ago, was completely new to me. I just love making stuff look like it was there, it's been used, it's been beaten, abused. And to me, it's a more realistic way to present a model. Now, you can take it a lot further. People like Adam Wilder, his stuff, people look at and go, no, it's way too extreme, way too extreme. I absolutely love it. I love the stuff he does. And I love that you can do something like a Luft 46 aircraft or a paper Panzer or American tanks that never saw service. And you can do what if stuff, do whatever you want. There's a guy on one of the Facebook pages where they do, Chris Becker started this flying aircraft in scale page. And one of the guys there did an F-14 as if it had had years of service in the Fleet Air Arm. And it's gorgeous. Really, really cool. Stuff like that I love. I love the what if aspect as well. You know, I'm about to do another aircraft, an F-18 as a CF-18E, as if the Canadians hadn't had an argument with Boeing and they hadn't bought the F-18, laughing, and not gone for the F-35 and just gone for the F-18E for a few more years. So I'm doing it that because it means I can weather the crap out of it too. As for stuff to roll your eyes at, I'm trying to think, because this hobby is great because it's different things to different people. Some people roll their eyes at how much weathering I might do. Other people might roll their eyes at, models being built look like they've just rolled out the factory. I don't think there's anything I really roll my eyes at. It's maybe the only thing would be, like I said, products that are produced by companies that cost quite a lot, and you could go down to your local, hardware store and get that for a fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
Unnecessary.
I think I'm with you on that one, because most people know I tend to live most of my life down at West Horton DIY and pick up their stuff, especially the fillers, because you can use them in dioramas all over the show. Yeah. Ready mix.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the only other thing that maybe I roll my eyes at is that when people criticize what you are doing on your build, that it doesn't have this and they didn't use this and they didn't do that. All right, fine. For you, that's important. But for the person building it, maybe it isn't. And they're just enjoying what they're doing. They're having fun. If they want to stick another part on that wasn't really on there, fine. Unless you're going for accuracy in a competition, it's a different matter. But why is it any skin off anyone else's nose?
Is your interpretation of what you're building, it's almost like an artist with an old master actually looking on his oils, etc., and they may not have been a hey Wayne, in the middle of that Ford, but I'll put one in. It looks good.
Like looking at a Picasso and going, there isn't an ear there. There's not two ears on the same side. Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, thanks for that, Martin.
So, Martin, do you have one? And if you do, what have you got that's hiding there?
I build pretty quickly. It's always been my thing, and that's from a kid. And I haven't slowed down as an adult. And I build stuff that I am passionate about, that I'm really into. I haven't ever built anything where I'm halfway through thinking, I really don't want to do this. So I don't have a shelf of doom. I started off just doing one kit at a time. And with the traveling and getting to a point where I couldn't transport something anymore, that had to change. So I would go 2 kits, maybe 3 kits. And sometimes now with the traveling, I'll be looking ahead a couple of builds and go, I've only got X amount of time at this layover. I could do some figures. So I'll look and see what I've got and I'll take those. So quite often I've got stuff where I'd open a box to work on a kit and the figures are done. So it's almost the reverse of a shelf of doom. I'm actually ahead. I don't have anything that I'm stalled on and is put aside for any reason. I'm actually doing, I can't believe I keep telling you about these aircraft I'm doing. I don't do aircraft, but it's all I seem to be doing right now. But I've got an English Electric Lightning, again, a plane from my youth that was iconic to me back then. I've got that kind of bubbling in the background and I'm trying an all-metal finish for the first time. I've got 2 little figures from the movie, not Heartbreak Ridge. It's the one about Desmond Doss, the US Marine medic.
Oh, Hacksaw Ridge.
That's it.
Yeah.
I took those 2 figures to do on a layover. So the figures are done. So they're put aside. I've got to do a base for that. I've got the Harrier that I'm working on. I've got some armor pieces that I'm doing. So they're all in process and none of them are stalled. I'll just take, and that's the good thing. What I find is that I don't get like a loss of mojo because I just change tack.
Yeah.
You know, slowing me down or I think, I don't know if I want to do that right now. I'll pick up something else.
Oh, all right.
And that's a good thing about dioramas too, because if you've got a diorama and, you know, you've got to a point with the main vehicle, like, okay, I don't feel like doing that bit right now. Fine. I'll work on the groundwork or I'll work on the figures or I'll work on something else. So I try and treat each diorama, for example, each component as being like a separate kit. So it stops me getting bored. It stops me having a shelf of doom.
That's really interesting. Very positive outlook on modelling compared to...
Yeah, very refreshing outlook you got there, Martin. I think a lot of people will take something from that.
I think you're quite unique if you've not got a shelf of doom.
Yeah, I've got nothing on it. I don't have one.
In fact, all you've got is a shelf.
Yeah.
That's all you've got, mate.
It's a shelf of positivity.
Shelf of optimism. That's what it is.
Yes, that's it.
I've got a question that leads on from that. I'm guessing that with obviously the network that Delta flies, you must have a list of model shops that you frequent. Do you actually manage to swap shifts if you actually need to go to a certain model shop to get components or spare parts or supplies?
I may or may not have done that in the past.
Don't admit anything.
I found at one point that I was short of balsa wood and balsa bits and pieces. And there's an art shop in Philadelphia that had this massive display of more balsa wood stuff than you could throw a cat at. There were sheets, there were sticks, there were everything in every dimension. So I would do trips to there and just pick up loads of stuff and fill my bag. So as far as kits go, there are a few stores that I do go out my way to visit on layovers. And I've got a layover coming up next month in Burbank. So I'm going to whiz down to Burbank House of Hobbies and have a look. But I'm trying to save my money. I'm going to SMC in Holland and to have access to companies that do diorama buildings and all that kind of stuff. I can't wait. So that's what I'm looking for. What I do tend to do with my layovers is rather than base them around stores, is base them around museums. So I've done Washington Dulles layovers and gone to the Smithsonian Air and Space Annex. I've done New Orleans layovers and gone to the World War II Museum. I've done layovers in Ohio and gone to the US Air Force Museum. I do tend to, when my schedule comes out and I'll look at destinations and see if there is something worth seeing nearby. I've been to, I can't remember the name of the battleship, it might be the Wisconsin, but I put on one layover and there's this massive battle wagon in the harbor I could see from my hotel room. So that's what I tend to use the layovers for in terms of modeling. I use them more for inspiration or reference, but it gives me access to museums that I would not go to. They'd be really expensive to fly across the country and go to the US 8th Air Force Museum in Savannah.
Oh man, that is my dream to go to that one. I'm a huge fan of the 8th.
Yeah. But this stuff is, I would never have been able to do this without this job. Here I am, a Brit in the US. I've been to all 50 states.
Cost a fortune, Martin.
From our audience figures and the analytical data we're getting back, there's only 4 states that haven't actually downloaded an episode of the pod so far.
Oh, where's that?
So, Wyoming, North and South Dakota, and Alaska.
Come on, guys, download. Come on.
That's because there's nobody there.
Yeah, I gather that much. Critics would freeze in Alaska.
Out of those, Alaska's one that I like to visit, but the others, North and South Dakota, the first time I flew over North Dakota, I looked out the window, it was in the winter, and the guy sitting there saw me and he saw the look on my face. He says, "You all right?" I said, "What's up, son?" Pushing up his cowboy hat. And I said, there's nothing out here. And all I could see, as far as I could see, and bear in mind, I'm like at, 30,000 feet, is flat and white. There was nothing as far as I could see. And I said, "There's nothing out there." And he says, Yep. You can see your dog running away for a week. And then he said, "And we've got a pretty girl behind every tree." And I said, "All right."
Oh, dear. Okay, Dan.
Martin, you are very active online. What role do you think social media plays in shaping this hobby that we all love so much?
I think one of the main contributors that social media has had to the hobby is sharing information. A friend of mine, Scott Gentry from the Plastic Posse, always says, "Rising tide raises all ships." And it's true. There is so much information that people are passing through social media that would have taken years to find out otherwise, or you never would have. I hear about in the past with people keeping techniques to themselves and not wanting to share information. Well, it's not like that anymore, which is great. I think I've progressed at the rate that I have because of social media, because of YouTube, because of Facebook. All of those things have given me information and give me directions to go in that I would never have found otherwise. Of course, there is obviously a downside to it, and that's the negative Nancys who are picking holes in people's builds. And it's funny because whenever you look at their profile, they've never posted anything. They never do.
No.
Yeah, they're too busy being negative, that's why.
Yeah, it's a big step to put something on social media, because you're saying, right, here I go, press upload and wait for the comments to come in, and hopefully some of them are going to be positive and not too negative. But
yeah, it can be daunting. And I see people sometimes say, "Oh, this is my first time posting and I'm a bit nervous." And I will always try and go on and say something positive about it, because I think you should be encouraging people to do stuff, to share their work. And, we all started somewhere. I look at my first build when I started back like 5 years ago. It is a Grumman Panther that I did with gloss enamel blue paint, and it looks like an 8-year-old painted it with their feet. It's awful, but I posted it. People were like, "Oh, good for you. You're getting back into it after 45 years. That's great." And that was encouraging. I think social media can help by that positivity and encouragement and sharing of information. I think it's vital for the future of the hobby.
yeah, absolutely. And with YouTube, like you say, the instructional videos and stuff like that, there is nothing on the TV that you can tune into for an hour of someone talking you how they use diorama techniques or how they build a model kit. There was absolutely nothing. Whereas now we all have our own custom hobby channel, don't we? That we can all just tune into whenever we want. And it's great. It really is. It's almost like social media for its intended purpose back in the day, which was building communities,
Yes. With something like YouTube, when I have the idea of a kit that I want to do or a diorama I want to do, and I'm thinking of buying a kit, I can go onto YouTube and I see reviews of all the options and the pitfalls and see whether that kit is worth me getting. It's invaluable for that. I hear people complaining about kits and how bad this kit, I'm halfway through it and I can't do it. And I'm like, I don't get into that situation because I do research beforehand. I find out if it's worth having. Why would I buy something that's going to stress me, that's not going to work if the information's out there?
Yeah. But on the flip side to that, you can, if there is a kit of a subject that you know is no one else does, and that's your only option, at least you're getting a bit of a run up to it and you know what you're letting yourself in for, rather than going in cold, just buying it and thinking, well, this was a waste of money, because there's nothing worse than wasting money in this hobby, is there?
You're right. Yeah. What are your key tips that you can give for painting figures? Because most of the figures I've tended to do myself, I've got really big, scary eyes on them.
Yeah, I'm not a figure expert. I'm learning as I go as well. So there are a lot of videos on YouTube from some excellent figure painters to help you out. What I tend to do is I will generally start with the face first. And I know if the face is going okay, I can do the rest. But what I would have tended to do is using my wet palette, I've got 3 shades of flesh to use. So I'll have those 3. I'll have a darker base one, I'll have a main mid one, and I'll have a highlight one. And what I will do is put down a base layer on the face, and then I will mix the next 2 colors together, that base color and the main color, and start to paint less and less of the face. And then I will mix the middle color with the highlight color. And again, so you're from the original face, you're painting highlighted areas and then making those highlighted areas smaller and smaller. Now, the eyes are a problem. And if you have to think about it, if you see another person who's 10 feet away, can you actually see the whites of their eyes or not?
No, you can't.
And so why paint them?
Yeah.
And that's why, because I've got plenty of googly-eyed.
Hang on, Martin, are you saying you don't paint the eyes?
No, not always.
Oh, right, okay.
If I am going to paint the eyes, I'll paint them before I start doing the flesh.
Right.
I'll do like a white line across.
No, I'm squinting now.
So I get closer. And just another little black line. So just small black lines, and then painting the flesh around, make that area smaller and smaller. I would try that. And that, again, is just stuff that I've learned from YouTube. There's a guy, Gavin Storer, a British guy who does incredible figures. I wrote to him way back, and he gave me so much information and advice on what to do, because his figures are just mind-blowing. There are lots and lots of people online who, big names in figure modeling, who really want to help. And eyes are definitely the hardest part, for sure.
They're the window to the soul, aren't they?
Exactly.
Absolutely. And it's funny, isn't it? It's the smallest item on the figure, and yet it makes or breaks the figure painting, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Then they'll usually look to the right or to the left. Then they'll look at another element, and then they'll look back again at the eyes in the diorama, because it creates that human emotion and that human connection with the diorama, doesn't it, straight away? And then you start to look for other elements in it, but you always go back to the eyes.
And another good thing I was told was, when you're painting the eyes, don't always make them looking straight forward. Have them looking off at an angle, because it's actually easier to do. And then you start having a little bit more white in there.
They'll look very surprised. I know.
So, Martin, you've obviously, scale-wise, you're mainly 1/35th, but this bust that you're doing, that's a real jump, isn't it?
Yeah, it's massive.
How are you finding that? I mean, with the eyes and the face, and you're doing tattoos on it, for God's sake.
The big cheat. She's got her eyes closed.
Ah, right, of course.
So that was that was a win. I just happened, just browsing on the internet, I came across, and it just really struck me. And I thought, that looks so cool. I want to paint that. And I got a friend to 3D print it. I bought the STL from the company who do it and started painting it. I'm learning a lot about figure painting by doing something that big, just working on the skin tones. And like you said, the tattoos, it was almost a shelf of doom, but I had decided that I was going to do it for SMC, so I have to get it done. And I actually got everything done except the tattoos, and I kept putting it off and putting it off. I got a friend who has a Cricut cutter. I found a a tattoo I liked, and I got him to cut out just the outline. It was going to be a skull with a snake going around it. And he did that for me. I sprayed the background and I was going to hand paint it. And again, it looked terrible. So I put flesh over it and I thought, right, I'm just going to have to man up and paint this thing. So on the one arm, I did tribal tattoos that I copied from a photograph. I drew it in pencil first and then got a fine paintbrush and painted it. And it came out okay. Obviously very dark, because reading, again, going onto YouTube and seeing how people suggested doing tattoos, they said either mix the flesh color with each of the colors you're using, or do a filter over the top. And I went for the latter because I've done that with armor. So I was okay with that technique. And so I did it and then made a flesh wash and it faded it into the skin. I thought, okay, that's one arm. And I was showing my wife designs and she said, yeah, if she's got a tribal tattoo on one arm, then she's going to have something not completely dissimilar on the other arm. And I said, no, that's a good point. So I found a skull that had some tribal stuff around it. And then I wanted to put some color in there as well, because that's one of the most striking things about people's tattoos. And I can see yours now. So I found some elements from other tattoos, leaves and flowers and things, and put something else in on top of the tribal stuff just to make it pop a bit.
Yeah, it just amazes me how from what I've seen you do on it so far, you've actually done it like it looks under the skin, because I've never painted a tattoo on a figure before. And my instinct would be to do it in black or grey. But that glaze that you've got over the top actually makes it look so realistic. I've never seen that before. That's a real credit to you. And your first go at it as well.
So the idea was that I'm going to finish that figure and then I'm going to decide whether I take that, or I've got another figure, which was the first full-size figure I've ever done, which is the ghoul character from Fallout. And that came out, I was really happy with how that came out, and it's done well in competitions here. It got a best figure in a show that I went to, and which I was astounded at. But it came out really how I'd imagined it. So if this cyber warrior doesn't work out looking really good, then I'm going to take the other one instead. But just before I go to SMC, one of the club meetings, Barry Beedinger, who's one of the guys from Small Subjects podcast, is an incredible figure painter. I will put both of them in front of Barry and say, which one should go?
Touching on that competition thing, Martin, obviously you being in America, my impression is that the scale model shows over there are very competition driven for now. Attitudes seem to be changing. They keep mentioning about how we do things over here and saying, those guys in the UK, they just turn up, they put a load of tables out, they put on a big show and they just stand around and chat and look at everyone's models, and the competition is there if you want to get involved in it. Do you see that changing in America anytime soon with the shows that you've been to?
I do. And I've been living here in the States for 25 years, and I've learned several things about Americans, competitions. There is always this thing of kids being taught right from the very beginning, be first, be number one. And there's that attitude that is very inherent in modeling and scale modeling here, which is why the 1, 2, 3 system has prevailed for so long. And like you say, people here have started to look at what else is happening worldwide and going, you know what, maybe this isn't the best way. And again, the figure guys figured it out, and they have their gold, silver, bronze, open system of judging. And that's becoming more popular as people start to realize, you know what, if I go to a show and I put my model in and it doesn't get first, second or third, I don't know if I'm fourth or I'm 40th. I have no idea. I have no feedback either. I don't know how I'm going to get better. Having it change to a system where it's more of an open system, you're competing against yourself, against a metric where you can see how you're doing and how you're progressing without having to know so-and-so's here this week, so I'm not going to win because he's really good. It's demoralizing, I think. If someone is constantly going to events and they're not getting in the first 3, they have no idea if they're getting better, how much better they're getting.
And it's almost like that system is designed, if you don't succeed in any way, that it's designed to sort of put you down personally from your very first competition. You say, do you know what, I'm not going to bother anymore.
And then it gives you then there's the whole gatekeeping thing because of all of that. I'm not into that. There was a show here that's this run of the second year, Rocky Mountain Hobby Expo, and that is trying to introduce more of an open system to our type of modeling. So you're not competing. They will look at your whole body of work, and that's one of the cool things. Instead of having your stuff spread all over an exhibition hall, you've got an aircraft there, you've got a figure over there, you've got a diorama over there, and people don't connect the dots. They don't know what it is that you do, and also the names are hidden. But at this show, you are exhibiting. You have all of your stuff together in one spot with your name on it, and people, you hear it as you walk around, like, I didn't know you did aircraft, or I didn't know you did figures, or you find out what people really do, and you can see the spread of their talent and what they're into. And it's
more of an exhibition.
You get to see what people do, and you get a better appreciation of their talents in this.
I had my eyes open to that. We have a show here in Ely, in the city of Ely in Cambridge. It's called the Fen Model Show. A lot of it is based around Warhammer and stuff like that. I went with my son, and I was absolutely blown away, first of all, by the standard of the figure painting. It is unbelievable what people can do with paint on plastic at the end of the day. But the way that they display, they're all almost at eye level. They've all got real good quality daylight lamps across the top. Yeah. And everybody's got their own space with a little tag, and usually their Instagram or their website. And what everybody does is they stand there with their phone and they take a photo of it. And then you go home, you say, right, now I can find who actually did that work, rather than scrolling through aimlessly on social media. And you think, that's amazing. Who did that? I want to ask them about the weathering. I want to ask them about the painting, but I don't know who did it.
Yeah. No, that should be the future. That's how things should be.
And that's how kids, my son, he's really into collecting Marvel, the posable figures, like action figures, basically. I could see his mind whirring while we were there, and he said, oh, Dad, maybe I could weather some of my figures and maybe I could put them on a diorama. And I just thought, yes, maybe that's his way into it. That's because, let's face it, he's just turned 13. He likes Second World War aircraft, as we all do, but kids these days don't have a real connection with it. There has to be new ways of getting kids and maybe slightly older lads in.
And we need to do that. Like you were saying, me growing up, I was growing up in the 60s and 70s. That's when all these blockbuster war films were out, Battle of the Bulge and Longest Day. And that's what gave me the interest that I have. But now it's different. And there's so much more stuff competing for people's time. It is very different.
Yeah. In this day and age with AI, and we all spend so much time looking at a screen, I honestly think that scale modelling is in a very healthy place. I do not think at all that the hobby is dying. It's evolving. At the end of the day, there is nothing better than sitting down, using a different part of your brain, the creative part of your brain, and doing something with your hands and actually just zoning out. It's almost a form of meditation for me.
Absolutely. And like you say, going to different genres, for me, I think it's improved who I am as a modeler. Like doing some Gundams and doing some ships or doing aircraft. Like right now, I've just pivoted and doing a few aircraft for a bit, and that stops it from getting stale as well. Another reason I don't have a shelf of doom. I switched them.
I know, it's full of your dioramas, Martin, isn't it? That's why. You just have that shelf.
Yes.
Do you find that by creating models of one genre, stopping and then starting a different genre, that helps you to go through, I don't know, learning new techniques as you're going through it?
Absolutely. I look at now, so for example, this Harrier that I'm doing, I'm going to do the mottling technique. I'm going to do some black basing, and it's new. It's exciting. That's something I can do. And I've done a little bit of something similar with armor builds, with filters. So I'm using a skill that I already have from something else, taking it to something newer to me, developing it more, and then I can take that back to my armor or whatever. So each of these things I think is a stepping stone of skill learning. And they're all tools that I now have to use. The more tools that you have in terms of skills, the more ability you now possess.
I guess it's almost like trying to reach nirvana in modelling, isn't it? So that you become, well, once you've hit the master and you become, your second black belt in it.
Yeah.
It's almost like saying, right, I can do that. I don't need to do it now. I can try something else.
Yeah.
And as you move forward, obviously I'm still a yellow belt back in the day, but it's something which I find as a modeler where I like to try something different with a different technique, or even go down LEs, or use something which gives you the impression of movement. That's my thing at the minute, is trying to get something static which looks as though it's moving.
You seem to be able to tell stories in your dioramas, though, Martin.
That's the key thing.
That's the first thing I noticed. I reckon I could see on a table 10 different dioramas by 10 different people, and I can spot yours straight away. You get that sense of story straight away.
And to me, that's the whole crux of dioramas. That's, to me, what dioramas are about, is I want to tell a story. I don't want to have a tank there with two Germans pointing and holding a map. I want to have, why are they there? What else is going on in the background? Who else is there? What stage of the war is this? To me, it just feels odd not to do. I find it really hard to do like a standalone piece of armor. I have to at least put some figures in there. And then I think, there should be some kind of story. So then there's something else in there. There's a building in there, and then it just grows.
In terms of your dioramas, Martin, do you plan a diorama, or do you build around the finished tank or armor or wherever and place it into a diorama?
Going back to the whole organizational thing, once I've had an idea for a diorama, and that idea can come from one of many places. It might be just scrolling through the internet and I see some figures and think they'd be cool in a diorama. What can I do around them? Or a piece of armor, or I've read something about a particular battle. So whatever it is, that's the basis of my plan. And then I will draw out a rough layout before I even start. And what I like to do, because the way my workflow is just, I need all the components that are necessary for it there. I don't want to start a diorama or a build until I've got everything, because I don't want to stop and have to wait for mail to arrive. That drives me nuts.
So you build up all your resources first.
If I want to stop doing something for a reason, fine. But I don't want something else to stop it for me.
The big question to finish off. So if I was to give you a blank check, Martin, and that check can pay for unlimited budget for your models, unlimited time, unlimited space, what's the ultimate dream project that you're going to do with that?
There was one project that I started doing way back, way before I should have even thought of anything like that, was, I don't know if you know the Resident Evil series of movies.
Yeah.
I was going to do a scene from that, and that came about because I had come across some figures. The figure of the main female character on her motorbike shooting a zombie, and it kind of drew from there. And I had this thing planned out, mapped out. I had all the components. It was going to be 150 zombies.
Blimey.
With a special forces team. It was going to be 3 levels. The top level, the vehicles were done, where they were driving in and going with the story. There'd been an outbreak. People were turning into zombies. There was elevators. There was computer rooms. There was labs. And I had all this sketched out. All the figures were done. And then I started looking at it and thinking, I won't even be able to get this out of this room, let alone take it anywhere. This thing was going to be about 4 feet tall by about 3 feet wide. I even bought all the light kits. There were going to be flashing lights for the elevator and explosion flashing lights in the background.
Oh, you got to do it. You got to do it.
So that's...
Got to do it. Build it by the window.
I've got to work out some way of splitting up the floors so that I can get it out of the house. But I know...
You've got to get it out of the hotel, mate.
But a more realistic one that is happening is a Battle of the Bulge scene. And the Bulge is probably the campaign that interests me most out of everything else in World War II. Because I spend a lot of time working in snow, I can appreciate what it could have been like being in that situation, sleeping outside in a hole, wearing cotton with people trying to kill you. Just blows my mind that they were able to do that. So I've got a scene of one of the bridges with Piper's units coming across. I've built a couple of the vehicles already. I've done quite a few of the figures already. It'll only have 50 or 60 figures in this one.
Only.
I've got the vegetation. I've got just about all the components. And I'm gradually, every time now and then when I've got a bit of spare time or not sure what to do, I'll do a few more figures. But this scene is going to be pretty big. And underneath the bridge, we'll have some American soldiers hiding. On the top of the bridge, you'll see some Germans dressed as MPs who are waving these troops through. And these Americans underneath are saying, what are these MPs doing? That must be Germans. So that's the whole scene. There are lots of iconic photographs from that battle of Americans surrendering, Potto after an ambush lighting a cigarette and got some American bits and pieces. All of those figures that people will recognize are going to be incorporated into the scene. They'll all be in different places on the scene. Some of those guys might be riding a tank on their way to there. Americans who were surrendering. The guy who was supposedly responsible for the Malmedy massacre, he'll be there. So it's not a real scene, that's something that happened, but just it's full of Easter eggs. All these characters that you will recognize will be dotted all over this diorama. So that's going on in the background all the time.
The one that's going to happen.
It needs to happen. It sounds fantastic.
Yeah, too right.
Yeah, got to do it.
Well, Martin, I'm conscious of the time, and obviously you have an appointment, unfortunately, because we could carry on talking for hours, literally. But thank you very much for your time this afternoon, this morning, this afternoon, this evening, whatever time it is with you and us, as we're all over the shot. And hopefully you'll come back on again and be a frequent visitor.
I'd love to. This has been so much fun, speaking to people in my own language, my people.
My people! Absolutely, with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I didn't think anybody would want to hear what I had to say, but thank you.
No, you're very welcome. And you've got such a story to tell. We've only just scratched the surface, literally. If you're happy, we will exchange schedules. And whenever you're available, you're more than welcome to actually join in with us.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, with that, thank you very much, Martin. And we will speak to you again in the future.
Cheers, Martin.
Absolutely.
Visit scalemodelpodcast.com, your hub for the best scale modelling pods, because finding great content shouldn't take longer than hunting for lost photo etch.
Welcome to another Rivet Counters Minute, brought to you by Matters of Scale. Today we're diving into the iconic XB70 Valkyrie. Here's a little known fact, the Valkyrie's YJ93 engines featured varying stator blades for high-speed performance at Mach 3. In total, each engine produced about 28,800 pounds of thrust, giving the Valkyrie its impressive speed and altitude capabilities. Now we're excited to offer a brand new 148 scale engine set for the popular HPH kit, complete with all 6 engines and their intricate mounting framework. Later this year, we'll also have a 1/72nd scale set for the Italeri AMT Valkyrie kit, so you can replicate that power in different scales. Visit us anytime at www.mattersofscale.com for more details. We're excited to announce our new partnership with Inside the Armour, better known as ITA3, an established UK brand known for their high-quality scale model upgrade parts. These parts are designed in the UK and printed in the USA by Matters of Scale, saving US buyers on shipping and tariffs. We're now offering ITA3's 148 scale upgrade parts for the FX Jaguar, like exhausts, landing gear, and seats, plus many other fantastic additions on our site. When it comes to ITA3 parts, they truly stand out for how detailed and well-researched they are. These upgrades are designed by scale modelers for scale modelers, which means every piece is carefully fitted and tested to ensure it fits perfectly in the kits they're meant for. All the fine details are beautifully sculpted in 3D and rendered to perfection. These parts are truly top-notch. Visit us at www.mattersofscale.com to explore the full lineup and let us know what else you'd love to see.
Benchmates, our guest today is a man who proves that you can't keep a good Spitfire down, or a good modeller. From the ashes of wingnut wings, he's built Kōtare models into one of the most exciting names kits today with a philosophy of accuracy, simplicity, and pure modelling joy. He's given us Spitfires that are as close as you'll get to the real thing without a Merlin engine in your shed. Please welcome the founder and guiding hand of Kōtare Models, Mark Robson. Welcome to the pod.
Good morning from New Zealand, and thank you for having me.
Yes, and I should mention that, in fact, it's Saturday evening in the UK and it's Sunday morning in New Zealand, so we almost need a time machine for this interview. And thank you very much for getting up early for us. It is appreciated. So, Mark, can you tell us how Kōtare Models came to life and what personal vision you had for the company when you founded it?
Okay, so we all know the Wingnut Wings story. New Zealanders are very proud of Wingnut Wings and the legacy that they created. Peter Jackson, the owner, Richard Alexander, the manager and driving force, and lots of really talented designers. So it was a big shock to us, I suppose, as a modelling community in New Zealand when it was shut down in 2020, just as COVID hit. And at that time, I owned a model shop, which I don't own anymore. And I had experience as being a shareholder in a company that distributed Hasegawa in New Zealand, the Hasegawa brand. So I had retail knowledge and distributor knowledge. And I thought the other part of that is manufacturer. I approached Richard, who took a really big risk. Actually, he moved from Wellington to live with me here in Auckland so that we could work together. And I sent him a list of 80 subjects in 4 scales that I thought would be good for our first kit set, as we say in New Zealand. And none of them was a 32nd scale Spitfire Mark I. But he'd been trying to persuade Peter Jackson to do a Spitfire for Wingnut. And Richard's dad was very passionate about Spitfires. And when he mentioned to me Battle of Britain Spitfire and that the previous kit set in 32nd scale was the Revell one from about 1967.
Yep.
I thought, wow, I built that kit when I was a kid. I thought the Battle of Britain and the most recent kit is 50 years old, and it just seemed to fit. So then there was 2 years of design work, and out of that came the Spitfire. Kudos to Richard and Darren, because Richard said there's no point in having a manager if you don't have a designer. So they both decided to come on board with a guy who had a very minimal track record, me. Here we are today.
Obviously, you've moved on from the Spit and you've announced the Hurricane, which I'm looking forward to.
Oh, yes.
Look, from your reaction, obviously that's an aircraft of passion for yourself as well. We'll come into that later. And obviously you've got the 109, which has just dropped.
That is on the bench.
Oh, cool.
Ooh.
I hope you enjoy it.
It is incredible. I've been doing it today
Oh,
for the last couple of hours, and it is... Oh, it's so cool. It is just such a cool kit to put together. The main thing, which is, I'm going to hopefully not go on too much of a tangent here, but the main thing which is standing out is the instructions. They're just awesome to have in a model kit like that, intricate and detailed. And yeah, it's brilliant. But anyway, sorry, keep on going.
that's okay. That's all right.
As you can see that Luke is quite a bit younger than the rest of us by a considerable margin.
And he's got more hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's got more hair than the rest of us put together.
Yeah, the mullet is doing great over here.
Oh dear. That's wrong on so many levels.
Many of the Kōtare team were involved with Wingnut Wings, as you said. What lessons, good and bad, did you carry forward from the experience into the new company?
That's quite a tricky question because I'm not a multimillionaire. And so one of the things we had to carry forward was trying to figure out which were commercial subjects, because until we're a little bit more mature as a company, I can't really take any big risks. So I spent a lot of time quizzing Richard, who is extremely discreet and very, very closed mouth about the Wingnut Wings experience, which is only right and proper. So we were trying to figure out which Wingnut Wings kits sold, and then figure out whether that World War I market could teach us anything about a World War II or more modern market. So we delved into what subjects sold, what didn't, and their Lancaster experience was very instructive in terms of the massive amount of design time behind a 32nd scale bomber, which is why I've had to apologize to all the people when we've announced the Halifax that there was just never any chance that we could afford to do that in 32nd scale. And probably never ever, barring a lottery win. So, yeah, part of it was the commercial aspects, almost like what not to do. And then the things that were very positive were the customer experience. What Luke was just explaining there, taking the instructions to another level, ease of build, accuracy of research. Richard is an extremely gifted researcher, can see more in a photo than anybody else I know, and how to take detailed information from 1940 and turn it into a really enjoyable, buildable kit in 2020s. So the people who enjoyed building a Wings kit, if they're able to also enjoy, say, World War II, are going to have a very similar experience with our Spitfire and Messerschmitt and Hurricane coming up. So yeah, so a little bit of what not to do, but also lots of what to do and amplify, if you like. The instructions for the 109 are sort of my baby, so all the mistakes are mine. And they've just followed the Wingnut Wings pattern, really, which is as many original photos as we possibly can put in, try to make it foolproof and enjoyable. Yeah, so enjoyable build.
Just to expand upon it slightly, I think when Wingnut Wings came onto the market, it was a complete game changer in the amount of reference material in the kit that you actually got, which is above and beyond what you get anywhere else. That was the key thing which I found with Wingnut Wings kits. So going forwards with your company and the kits there, if it's following along the same path, that's a brilliant thing.
Richard, yeah, the instructions for Wingnut Wings are really down to Richard. He had the vision. He's, again, very discreet about what influence Peter Jackson had. But I've coined a term, because I'm a veterinarian and we're trying to work to the philosophy of what's called evidence-based medicine, or EBM. I've coined a term amongst our group, evidence-based modeling. Now, what is the evidence that the Spitfire codes look like that, or that the undercarriage position indicator was red? Each fact that we know, in inverted commas, about an aeroplane from 1940 or 1930 or 1960, is it true? Richard really teased out that supermarine green interior color for the supermarine built Spitfires. That's not the classic aircraft grey green that we all know from building RAF models most of our lives. So he's really pushed the boundaries of the knowledge, and I call it iconoclastic. All Spitfires were so-and-so. Well, maybe they weren't. So the instructions are our way of presenting our evidence to the modeler for what we think the airplane looked like. But we always say, this is our evidence. It may not be correct, especially interpreting black and white photos, which we all know is a minefield. So, yeah, thank you. I'm pleased to know that people think the instructions are in the same league as Wingnut Wings.
I must admit, when I was getting back into the hobby, I decided instead of actually building something that was mediocre, I would go for the best. And the first aircraft I put back together after a gap of nearly 30 years in the hobby was the Kōtare 1A, the Spit.
Oh, wow.
And sat down, looking at the instructions, looking at how it was actually put together as a kit, rather than actually, you just split the fuselage left and right. No, you actually put the fuselage spine was one piece, so you didn't have the joint, etc. And the thought that has actually gone into that design of the aircraft was absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
So it made it so simple, but also the control runs, given the details for that, although you can't see much of it, from my side of it, knowing that they're there, is absolutely brilliant, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. To the fact that I've got every other model of a Mark of Spit that you've actually produced so far, and the 5B, which is the one that I really need for my collection, which is, I'm sure we'll come on to that later on, but yes, I just can't wait. All of the Spits are definitely going to be in my wheelhouse to actually go forward with. But you saying about the cockpit green, the supermarine green, that was a complete eye-opener for me from my past. One of the airfields that I worked at was a place called Popham, which was owned by the property millionaire Charles Church, And he had a facility where he actually had, at Micheldever, 7 Spitfires that were under restoration to flying, along with a walrus under the guise of Dick Melton, who was the person for Spitfires. A lot of the 2 seats that are flying today all have the influence that he actually put into that build. The walrus is still under restoration at Duxford, but Dick, unfortunately, is no longer with us. But the information, he was actually showing me, different sections of a cockpit green that don't take what as being, you're told in kit instructions, as being gospel. And he was absolutely right. And the first time I saw it in print was in your instructions.
Oh, that's very rewarding. Richard would be proud of that. And yeah, cool that you came back to modelling with our kit set, because slightly off topic, but Richard maintains that we could get a complete newbie to build our Spitfire. They could build our Spitfire. I think it's probably just a little bit more complicated than that, but people enjoy the experience of the way big parts of it just click together. The cockpit, you look at it and you go, and then click, it's in place, and it doesn't even really need glue.
Yes.
And the wing fillets, we debated about those, but you sort of need that different wing fillet for the wireless hatch on the left side, and they just click in. So it should be an easy experience. The only thing on the Spitfire that still causes me fits really is that under fuselage joint where the wing assembly mates with the underside of the fuselage, and that's really difficult to engineer.
Yes.
But the spine, we were big on the spine. I'm going to say I think it was my idea, but I'm pretty sure Richard was ahead of me anyway. It's just I hate sanding and filling. I just hate sanding and filling and rescribing. We couldn't do anything underneath, but then at least it is underneath. But the spine, it should have that slight shoulder to it. That panel stood slightly proud. So, and then you don't have to try to replace the rivets on the top of the spine. Anyway, that's a minor point.
And I haven't actually looked. You've just reminded me of something that Dick showed me on a real Spit, was that the actual tail section was at a slight angle to actually counter the rotation of the torque of the engine. So where you actually would expect the tail to be literally a 50-50 split for a fuselage, it's actually angled on the fuselage. It's not square on to the actual spine.
Wow, you just taught me something. I didn't know.
Yeah, the Merlins are canted to one direction, whereas the Griffin tails are actually canted slightly to the opposite direction because they are rotating the opposite direction.
Yeah, because they are rotating the other way. Yeah.
But yes, it's just a case of, it's just a joy to put together I won't say as a newbie, because I was into the hobby years ago, but it was a case of coming back to it. I just thought, why start with something complicated? Start with something that is well engineered and actually ideal to actually get back into the hobby. And also the other master stroke with the kit is the undercarriage, in the way they're actually into the wings, that you cannot get the angle for the gear wrong. There's no way to actually cock it up for even like an idiot like me to do. So yes, the whole thing, it just shows that there was a lot of thought went into the design of the model.
Yes, the undercarriage is a trick. And I was just recently at the show in Melbourne, the Model Expo, and we had the 109. Richard was there ahead of me, and he had a built-up 109 just not painted. And I picked it up to show a modeler, and he hadn't even glued it together. And the wing assembly fell off the fuselage, but then I just clicked it back in. And then he said, "Oh, take the undercarriage out." So you click the undercarriage out, click the undercarriage back in. You don't even need to glue it. And then the flats on the wheels are molded at the right angle. So it's possible, I won't tell you how many times the design was fettled as the test shots came in from China. It'd be like a millimeter here, half a millimeter there. But I'm glad you had that experience. That's really pleasing.
Okay, in that case, we'll go on to the next question. Luke.
Yes, I mean, that whole kind of context that we've just kind of gone through the Spitfire is actually quite helpful for this question, at least. So the question is, Kōtare often talks about a simpler, more modeler-friendly design philosophy. How do you strike the balance between accuracy, detail, and accessibility?
Pardon me. That is also a really good question. In the discussions, so Richard and I were living in the same place. I'd be at work and he'd come home and say, what have you guys done today? Darren was in Wellington. They spend a lot of time online with each other, even though Richard's now back in Wellington. So it would be, how can we get away with as few parts as possible which is partly a cost thing because every part, adds costs to the mold. It's not a simple thing, that equation, though, as everybody writes in the magazines. The difference between 100 parts and 110 parts probably isn't $10,000 or something like that. But still, how many parts can be molded in one? So the Messerschmitt and the Spitfire, the cockpit, is surprisingly simple to produce a surprisingly complex outcome. And so Richard's got an amazing 3D mind. Darren just thinks in 3D all the time anyway, because he's a CAD designer. So they can look at the photos, look at the drawings, and in their heads is the shape and the orientation of all those cockpit parts, to trying to make it as accurate as possible, paintable, but also quick to put together. And I've had my first experience over the last 18 months with working with a designer on an upcoming subject, which I'm sorry, Paul, I'm not going to tell you about. And the trying to learn from Richard and watch how I would watch him have an online session with Darren, and watching Darren, I say he makes the electrons dance in the CAD. So using SolidWorks, which is a very competent, rather expensive software program, he can just make curves and rivets and angles and play with the shapes. And Richard would go, no, yes, there. And then onto the next part, onto the next part, onto the next part. So I've had a little bit of that same experience. So in that question, though, is the looming dollar sign, because the more time you take, the more it costs. The more subtle the shapes, the more chance that the mold is going to be subtly wrong and need to be adjusted. And it's the bank manager sitting in the back of the room going, come on, you guys need to get this out on the market. So along with those accuracy, ease of build, enjoyable experience is what is the deadline for getting this kit shipping. I bet you every modeler in this group and in this world has had that experience of, you've got a deadline for a show or a submission of an article or something, and you'd want another 12 hours on the model. Even as you're putting it on the table, you're going, oh man, I could have done a better job of that weathering or whatever. Nobody who looks at the model would have any clue that you could do 12 more hours or whatever. It wouldn't affect the outcome in the eyes of the people. But it's just like that designing a kit. Richard wanted another 6 months on the Spitfire to make it even more perfect, even more Tamiya-like. And we were just like, no, we've got to put it out as is. And thankfully, it's been a good outcome. But that's happening with every kit we do. It's like, oh, can we do that again? And we were making changes on the Messerschmitt a week before they started producing their parts. So it's always about trying to get as close to perfect as possible, understanding that you're never going to actually get there. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I mean, everything you've said there, as I've literally just been making the K4, it all makes sense. I've just finished off 2 of these little 70-second MiG-21s, and I think they've somehow got more parts than the K4. And it's like you can fit a MiG on each side of the wing, which is great. But for me and how I like to model it, and I'm almost convinced most modelers in the world, they'd prefer to have a model of that sort of scale, which is only made up of 4 sprues, and it is quite easy and just goes together. And it's good that you mentioned about the whole painting side of things as well. That feels really thought out in the model. I mean, the cockpit today, it's like done, and it's like I've spent 3 hours on it. How is it already done? And another thing whilst we're on it is that the decals as well for the instrument panel, having each of the individual gauges put out, it was so great, especially as you now have all of the Quintus Studios sort of stuff on the market. If you have the decals, which are so well printed already in the kit, it almost puts them out of the way, because I've got those decals on now, I put the gloss varnish on them, and it looks 10 times better than a Quintus set, so it's just, it all makes sense, and it's all very, very satisfying. That is, the main thing.
Oh, that's lovely to hear. Yeah, the individual decals were a debate that we had. It's, even with the brilliance of Cartograph as a printer, it's just impossible to have a whole instrument board and get rid of all the clear film in between. So somebody was posting on Facebook yesterday that I must be crazy, I just put 39 individual decals on the 109. But as you found, it doesn't take that long, just a systematic movement. And the printing is incredible because Cartograph can do that. The dials should look as close as printing can get to the original instruments. We've had a little bit of comment about the bezel colors, and we're not 100% sure that we've got it right, but a lot of people seem to like it because there just aren't many color photos of K4 cockpits lying around in the world. So that's nice to hear that you're having a good experience. Scott Samo, the Model Geek, said the same thing. He was like, 3 hours in the cockpit was together. What's the story? So I have this philosophy, which I've said several times, of decaling is my favorite part of the model, decaling and finishing it. I'm a really slow finisher. So everything that gets in the way of getting to decaling is an irritation to me. An engine, too many parts, or too many seams to fill. So it's like, how can we get this model together, painted and decaled as quickly as possible and get on to the next one? So that's a little bit of the guiding philosophy, I suppose, which is not much different to what Richard was doing with Wingnut Wings.
Brilliant.
Okay, Dan.
Hi, Mark. Your first release was the 32nd scale Spit Mark 1A. You recently announced the annual launch of a limited edition photo reconnaissance version of the Spit. How long before you tool a Griffin-powered 32nd Spit to fill the brief?
If I had more designers next week, because the Griffins are my favourite Spitfires, the Mark 22, the FR47. So when Richard and I were debating the first subject, I once would realised it wasn't going to be a 72nd scale VC10. It was which Spitfire. And I was pushing for a Mark 14 because you feel, as a model shop owner, wartime subjects sell better than peacetime subjects. So a Mark 14 is almost certainly going to do better than a Mark 22. So he pointed out very cogently, as I said before, that the Battle of Britain Spitfire was the obvious choice. So we had a risk for a while there that we're going to be seen as a one-trick pony. So Spitfire, 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 Spitfire. And that was behind the decision to go with the Messerschmitt and some of the other things that we're working on. But Richard and I have an orderly progression of Spitfires in mind. I'm not saying it's going to be as they were produced in real life. We might jump further into the line and then come back into the middle or something like that. But before I die, we're going to do Griffin Spitfires in 32nd scale and 48 scale and maybe 72nd scale. So my comment about the PR Spitfires, a few people have picked up on, what, you're going to do all the PR Spitfires? That means you're doing Griffin Spitfires. Well, yes, but I'm not sure when. And the PR Spitfires, there is a rationale for doing it in the historical sequence, PRA, PRB, PRC, etc. So you can see where a Griffin Spitfire is going to come into that line, which is probably 10 years away. But I suspect it'll be quicker than that. And I know it's heresy. Well, in the eyes of some people, it's heresy to say I prefer a Griffin Spitfire over a Mark 1 or a Mark 5 or a Mark 9. It's just, it looks balanced to my eye. The big nose, the big tail, sleek. So I built the Matchbox 32nd scale Mark 22 when I was about 13. And while it was a mission, I was still extraordinarily proud of that airplane and the way it sat on the bench and hung from my ceiling. So I want to get back to that era of Spitfires. So the Mark 14, though, is the wartime feared, according to the Luftwaffe, Spitfire development. And whether it's high back or bubble top, it just looks the business. And so, yeah, Griffin Spitfire's coming up, but not in the next 24 months. I can tell you that.
No, but it is something that you'd certainly consider doing.
Oh, absolutely. Do I sound enthusiastic about Griffin Spitfires?
Not so.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
I love them. I think they're great.
The thing that
Take my money now.
the thing that I picked up on was the Seafire reference as well.
Well, about the FX Seafire FR47, I love that airplane. In 1996, I got to do a driving tour of the States, and my friend Lee Cole from Baton Rouge insisted that I go to a place called Breckenridge, Texas, which is in the middle of nowhere, because that's where a refurbishment facility had the last remaining FR47. And Lee, and also because he's mates with Roy Sutherland, so you've got to go and measure the flaps because the flaps were bigger, and you've got to get detailed photos. We get there, me and my long-suffering ex-wife, and the guy, I forgot his name, lovely man, but he said, look, the Seafire is in those containers over there in bits, covered in other bits, I'm not going to be able to just get bits out for you. But here's a Bearcat. Climb all over the Bearcat. So I've got 200 old print photos of a Bearcat. And, of course, that aircraft was restored to fly, and I would love to see that aircraft fly. It hasn't flown very much, but you could argue they took the Spitfire too far, and we all know the FR-47 was really not really suited for carrier warfare in Korea in the middle of winter, but what a machine. And, yeah, so we'll be doing Seafires. That's probably the first time I've said that, but it should be, I think, fairly obvious. If we're going to go through Spitfires, you're going to have to do Seafires too. So maybe the first Griffin Spitfire will actually be a Seafire. We'll see.
There's a shout.
Hot off the press.
Don't get your hopes up. There's nothing.
Yeah. Well, you can't dangle it like that in front of us.
Yeah, why not? And then, of course, you've got the Spiteful, and you've got the Sea Fang, and then obviously the Attacker. So lovely progression.
Hey, come on.
Yeah. Oh, we'll just whistle one up this week, shall we? I was thinking about the Spiteful and the Sea Fang yesterday. They're not my favourite shapes, but and 32nd scale. Oh, I'd have to have some money in the bank to do those. But I love 50s aircraft, so the jets are coming. Again, there's nothing being designed right now, I assure you. But Attacker, Seahawk, Sea Vixen, Scimitar, they're some of my favourite airplanes. So yeah, duly noted.
And a little trick, if you ever need to take a Seahawk to pieces to move it by road, you've got to have the wings folded.
All right.
The actual design is basically the wings dropped in, and the only way you can get the wings off is to have them folded. So if you've got one that was a gate guard, going back into my dim and distant past again, we tried to move one by road, and we had to get the hydraulics working to get the wings folded so we could actually lift them off to move it.
Wow. But
then again, when they were built at Coventry, but they flew from Pit as well, because at that time Coventry didn't have a hard runway. So it was literally a vertical drop in for the wing. There's a useful piece of information for somebody.
I love that shape, the Seahawk. I've recently finished the Hobby Boss one and the overall Reds aerobatic scheme. I just think it's such a pretty aeroplane. So we'll be doing Seahawks in one form or another at some point.
And there's another exclusive. Okay, then moving on. Kōtare are praised for historical accuracy, and you've already touched on this partly already, but can you walk us through your research process, how you source references, validate them, and translate them into CAD?
Yeah, the research, it takes an enormous amount of work. So back to Richard. So he's, I've already said, can get more information out of a photo than anybody I know. He's built our archive, digital archive, and he's phenomenal. So every photo is cross-referenced 4 or 5 different ways, like by serial number, squadron number, date. He can search all the highest resolution photos, or all the color photos, all the 19 squadron photos. They all just pop up as you search, multiple layers, and then in each aircraft there'll be undercarriage, propeller, cockpit, etc. And then in the cockpit there'll be instrument panel. Then in the instrument panel section there'll be, altimeter or whatever. So it's just this magnificently structured archive, which I need to learn how to do now for one of the subjects we're starting in the next week or two, because I'm responsible for managing it. Because I've tried to learn from Richard. Kōtare is my retirement income, my retirement enthusiasm. So I need to learn everything that he can do, and I'm not very digitally orientated. So organization of the images is crucial. Finding the images, he definitely keeps his secrets. He finds photos and he won't tell me where they came from. With Wingnut Wings, he developed a worldwide network of people who, supply original photos and information. So for instance, the Halifax project, one of the reasons we're constructing it the way we've constructed it, which is inviting people to join from day one, is we need all that information. And so as soon as you announce a subject, people send you stuff. It's very kind. People take time to send you a photo, and maybe you already have that photo, maybe you don't. Maybe it's a higher res version of a photo that you already have, or a different angle. And so some of the information gathering is systematic and driven by Richard. Some of it is just random. Somebody sent me an email yesterday with some plans of the Halifax. Just they saw the announcement. They like, you might be interested in these. I'm like, great, thank you very much. Excuse me. So that all has to be integrated into, have we got enough? do you have, like that old modeling question, do you ever have enough references? And in building a kit set, designing a kit set, you can't have too much, as opposed to building a model where sometimes you get like, oh my God, I can't reproduce this. Books, where I'm still old fashioned. Richard's not that much of a book user, but I'm a avid book user. So in my living room behind me, because I'm currently living by myself, my partner and I live separately, so I can have books everywhere. There's my big pile of Halifax books. So I've been accumulating Halifax books, well, for 40 years, but in the last few months it's been intensifying. So I use books a lot. And then the real aircraft. So we've been lucky with the Hurricane. We were gifted by a very kind gentleman a LiDAR scan of the finished Hurricane Mark 1. And so we all know, I think it's fair to say, Airfix pioneered the LiDAR scanning concept. Maybe they weren't the first, but they were the first to really publicize it. And it is massively helpful. It saves weeks of design time. We're not going to say we're only going to do aircraft that we can LiDAR scan. That's not the case at all. But if we can get a scan, either commission the scan ourselves, which we've done, or somebody has a scan already and can sell us it or give us it. So that's almost like a promo for people out there listening to this podcast. If you have LiDAR scans of aircraft that you think we might be interested in, please drop us an email. And then, how should I go? Yeah. So I've got a very good friend and tennis buddy who's invested in the company. So he's part owner of the 109 design, for instance. His name is Mark Grover. And he's an engineer, I won't say for who. And shall we say he's organized for the company to buy a very high quality LiDAR scanner. And one day, quite soon, we're going to get access to it. And we're going to start off by scanning a car or something like that. So we learn the technology. And then you'll hear on the internet, the Kōtare team were at Ardmore last week scanning the, I don't know, de Havilland Hornet or whatever they're refurbishing down there. So we're going to go out and do our own LiDAR scanning with eventually our own scanner, because they're going to be as big as a phone soon enough, and you'll put them on a drone and you'll fly around an airplane, and 10 minutes later you'll have a LiDAR scan. So we'll be going around the museums of the world scanning left, right, and centre. Does that answer that question? I've sort of gone off on a little rant there.
I think you've covered it more than capably. Okay, so we now have the latecomer, Mike, if he wants to go with the next question.
Kōtare is known for being a close-knit team. How do you and your designers, filmmakers and researchers collaborate across different parts of the world?
I mentioned before that Richard stayed in my house for quite a while we were getting the company going. So I watched him working with Darren, who was in Wellington. And interestingly, even though Richard's moved back to Wellington, they still tend to work online. And they've just developed this relationship. They knew each other, of course, very, very well from the Wing Up Wings days. But Richard can interact with Darren on the screen and via a digital connection almost as well as when they're sitting in the same room together. We are hoping, I'm jumping ahead now, we are hoping to have a design office in Wellington maybe later this year. We're hoping to get more designers on board. And so we want to have a collaborative environment, because Darren tells me that back in Wing Up Wings days, there was a certain G to having the designers and Richard in the same room. How, they could turn around and go, oh, how do you get that curve on that propeller blade? How do you make the seat fit on a Spitfire, et cetera? All those sorts of questions. But also in the modern environment, working from home with flexible hours. So Darren has children. He likes flexible working life, so he can drop the kids to school, pick them up after school, that sort of thing. So we'll have a hybrid working life where 1 or 2 days they come into the office. Richard sits there. I'm hoping to be there more often as I slowly downgrade my veterinary career. And so we will have times when we're all together in the same room, at least the New Zealand crew. But a lot of the time is spent doing this sort of thing online. I think Richard and Darren use Teams as their software platform. Lots of phone calls, not quite as satisfactory as sitting in the same room. And then I try to get down to Wellington at least every couple of months for a full day of brainstorming, putting kits together, show me how this works. Darren can build the kit digitally. The first time he did that with the Spitfire, Richard and I were sitting up here in my living room. Darren was in Wellington. It was an evening. And he literally built the Spitfire digitally on the screen in front of us. And that was my first inkling of just how cool it was going to be. because at that point there were no plastic parts and we hadn't 3D printed anything. So, yeah, so a lot of online stuff, some in-person stuff. And then we've got Radu Brinzan, who lives in Ireland. So he's done the 109 for us. And that's, of course, all digital because you can't just hop over to Ireland for a few hours for a meeting. And that's introduced some issues, especially because the K4 was so poorly documented. So it was like you got this grainy photo from 1945, making sure you both have the same photo that you're looking at. And Richard managed that project largely in the design phase. So it'd be like photo number 27 in the archive. Have a look at that. Does it look like that? So the project I've been doing with Radu, because of my working life, it would be 8:30 at night my time. So it's morning time for Radu. And we'd spend 2 to 3 hours online just going through the design, getting quite late for me, but I'm a late person, so that works okay. And Radu's an extremely passionate person. So first you've got to get through talking about the Russia-Ukraine war and stuff like that, and then you get onto the model airplane. That's sort of the way it works at the moment. I don't think it's easy when you're in different parts of the world. And I think we'll do better in the Wellington crew when we've got an office space to all get together around a table and go, this hurricane test shot, what's good, what needs fixing, and do it all together. I think that will be easier. But that's the way it is done at the moment.
When somebody opens a Kōtare box, what do you want their immediate reaction to be, Mark?
Wow. Firstly, we're having this is a frustrating topic. Firstly, we want all the parts, the box to arrive in good condition. So shipping kits around the world. I got some new shipping boxes done last year with our logo on it and went for the thickest grade of cardboard that seems, affordable and practical, but still the postal services of the world can, I think you could make a shipping box out of titanium and they would still find a way to crush it. So firstly, the kit's in good condition, the instructions are in good condition, etc. And then people to look at the parts. Yeah, I've developed a little bit of a philosophy for the team. I call it WWTD, which is what would Tamiya do? So I want people to have an experience opening our box top that the same thing I get when I open, say, the Tamiya F-14 Tomcat, which is, wow, look at the beauty of those parts, the finesse of the detail, the nice feel of the instruction booklet, the clear parts, the transparencies being crisp and really, really clear, and the feeling of wanting to get started on it. Okay, this is jumping to the top of the build queue, or I'm not going down the pub tonight. I'm going to sit at home and start building this airplane. So hopefully all over the world, people are opening their 109s, having some of those feelings and carrying that into actually finishing the model. So I guess the initial feeling of wow, and then I want to get onto this, and then I want to finish this. That sort of sequence of feelings with one of our kits. As a manufacturer, it doesn't make any difference whether people finish our models or not, but it's incredibly satisfying to see all the models online and go to shows and see one of your models built up. So we do, I said I want the Spitfire to have the highest completion percentage of any 32nd scale kit set ever released, as if we could possibly know, how many of our Spitfires.
Yeah, send your photos in.
Yeah, what's your hit rate compared to the 32nd scale from another company? So yeah, that feeling of wow, then enthusiasm that continues through the build to getting it on the shelf, really, that sort of feeling.
That's a great answer. I think for me, it's after the wow bit, it's when you go through it and there's almost like that, how can you put it, that Apple iPhone unboxing. Yeah, do you know that satisfaction when you pull the film off the screen?
Yes.
It's that sort of feeling of, oh, this is quality,
Yes.
That's the sort of element which I quite enjoy. And that's just looking at the parts.
I think we can do better. One of the things that's been on my mind is if you look at some of the kits from manufacturers in Asia, the box is compartmentalized with the clear parts in their own little cardboard segment. We're never very unlikely to have photo etch and stuff like that, but if we did, it would be securely packaged. So at the moment, I think we could still do better with compartmentalizing our boxings inside, and with the 109, because I made the instructions so long, the instruction booklet is really heavy, and it's caused a bit of a problem with rubbing against sprue attachment points. And so maybe having a box with a false floor or something like that, where the decals and instructions will be separated from the parts. So it's an evolving thing all the time. We just had a dialogue with somebody on Facebook yesterday who's recommended looking at a manufacturer from China, I think it was, that has a really tough box that the kit is in, not the shipping box, but the actual kit box. And I'm going to try and buy one of those kits and have a look at how they do it, because you never reach perfection. You've got to evolve and improve all the time.
Absolutely. So with your boxes, do you source them locally, or do you have a manufacturer who specifically makes it just for the company?
So the boxing so far, all of them have been completely put together in China. We've got 2 different molding companies that we work with at the moment. And so mold maker commissions the production of the kit boxes, the instructions, the printing of the instructions. Decals are done in cartograph and then shipped to China. By the way, thousands of decals are really heavy. Like they go on pallets, and they're hundreds of kilos shipments that go from Italy to China. So that's a major logistical exercise. So, however, upcoming with the PRA, we're probably going to get the kit boxes done locally, because we want that to be, I don't want to denigrate the normal kits because I think they're beautiful, but those collectible special edition kits have got to be special in my mind. The box has got to feel different to the standard edition kits. It's a difficult marketing thing, because you don't want to have people go, oh, I'm getting an ordinary Kōtare kit. So, but they're going to be a slightly different box look and feel, maybe a thicker grade of cardboard, etc., maybe a smooth, glossy finish rather than our satin finish. We haven't quite finalized that idea yet. So I'd like to do more locally because I'm a proud Kiwi and I'd like to support local industry. But there's also an economic imperative there as well. Can we match the Chinese manufacturing prices? By the way, with the molds, I approached half a dozen molding companies in New Zealand back in 2020 to see if anybody could make aeroplane kit set molds in New Zealand, and they all looked at it and went, no, we can't do this. So one day I hope to have our own mold making company in New Zealand, but realistically it's probably not going to happen. So yeah, at the moment the packaging is done in China and we get them in cartons of 12. And then for our pre-orders, like with the meshes at my house, again, lucky I live by myself and it's a big house. So we had, shall we say, 1,000+ kit sets with a little production line of my mates and my family taking lids off, checking the instructions, putting a set of exhausts in, putting it in a shipping box. The shipping boxes are made in New Zealand, they're individual shipping boxes. And we got the Kōtare logo put on them because I think it's nice if somebody comes home from work and on their front step is a shipping box that it's got the Kōtare logo and they know it's a Kōtare kit set in there. I think that's a nice thing.
Brilliant. So I think this is quite an interesting question for yourself, just because you have mentioned not a Tamiya influence, but obviously Tamiya is something that has played on your mind at least. So the question is, the modelling market is competitive with big names like Tamiya and Edward. Where do you think Kōtare sits in that landscape, and how do you carve your niche?
Now, it's funny you should use the word niche. So I've bored people about this before, so stop me if it gets boring. So because I'm a vet and you have to do biology to be a vet, I have this concept of modelling niches. Some people say niches, that's okay. I say niche. In the same way as occurs in nature. So I remember vividly in our final year of high school, we had a school camp, which was a learning exercise all about the seashore and how you can have different types of mollusk or shellfish or seaweed that exist only 30 centimeters from each other, depending on which creature has adapted to being out of the water as the tide goes up and down. So you can have things that look superficially just the same, but they exist in slightly different niches. And this comes up when we start talking about, because the development time of these kit sets is so long, it takes 2 years from the idea to shipping a product. And what if somebody else comes out with in the same time frame? So when we were considering the Hurricane, there was already rumors that another Hurricane was being developed in 32nd scale. And Richard and I, we talked about it for weeks. This is a big commitment. What if Tamiya come out with a Mark 1 Hurricane at the same time as we do? And I'm pleased that he thought the same that I think, which is, so what? We're different niche to Tamiya. They will have a multi-medium cockpit with photo etch and I think their Spitfire kit, there's 5 different media in the cockpit, and that's brilliant. That's what Tamiya do, but ours would be different. So it's sort of like having the courage of your convictions to go, well, we've got to decide on something. Ours will have a niche. It can coexist with a Tamiya kit. It can coexist with an Eduard kit because their philosophy is quite different, with loads of detail parts, loads of photo etch, loads of resin in there. So I think as long as our quality of build and ease of assembly and all the other things we've talked about are top notch, we can coexist with those big players. And we look at what they're doing all the time. Richard is constantly going through online instructions of kits. I like the real thing in my hand, so I'll buy the latest kit and at least cut parts of the sprues. We're trying to steal good ideas, like David Bowie with music. He was a great thief of ideas and making something amazing out of a whole bunch of concepts. So we look at a model from Tamiya or Eduard. I bought and put together most of the Eduard 109K to see how they do it. So I believe that your philosophy gives you a position in the market, and then there's price. Okay, so price, we cannot get away. Again, I know I sound like a bank manager, but you've got to have a price point that people believe it's what is that terrible phrase, a value proposition. Maybe we can do a Spitfire Mark 9 as long as it's considerably cheaper than the Tamiya one. Maybe that's going to be what puts us in a different niche. Is that making sense, that niche concept?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a hard question because I think everyone knows that different manufacturers, as you say, do things much differently. Like I built the Eduard K4 a year ago, and it's already within 4 hours, it's a completely different methodology in how both of you have gone about creating that model. And I think that is what makes modeling so good though, doesn't it? Because
yes,
you can have fun with the same subject, but it's 2 very different experiences, and they're both going to have their ups and not really downs, but different sides to them. So It's a hard question, but very well answered.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I probably am a bit boring on the niche thing, but it occupies our mind. You've got to think as an owner 2, 3, 4, 5 years ahead. You're imagining what is Tamiya going to get back into 32nd scale? Is Eduard coming back into 32nd scale with a rush? Is anybody doing a fairy fruit bat already and we don't know about it? So we may as well not bother doing a fairy fruit bat, that old internet joke. So I think we've carved out our niche now, and as long as we give modelers that same experience in the future, we'll do okay.
Would you, just to follow on the niche thing, would you go into other scales with the kits?
Oh, absolutely. That first list that I sent to Richard had 5 scales, 24, 32, 5 scales. I have some themes in my head that I'd like to follow through. It's probably fairly obvious. Battle of Britain is one of them. Spitfire's obvious. I love civil airliners, even though they don't sell as well as military subjects. So 72nd scale airliners going from 1930 to 1985, something like that. So that's in my mind, that's got to be 72nd scale. But then a VC-10 in 72nd scale is a massive model. How much is that going to cost? Is that practical? So I had an interesting experience at the Melbourne Expo. Bear in mind, these are Aussies, right? So a chap came up and said, "What's your first jet going to be?" And I said to him, "Well, what do you think we should do?" And he looked at me and said, "I don't know." And I said, "Well, go around the show and come back and tell me what you think we should do." So he comes back an hour later, and again, remember he's an Aussie, and he says, "An F-111 in 32nd scale." And I said, "Okay, go and look at that. Go and look at that border Lancaster over there. An F-111 is longer than a Lancaster." He said, "No, it's not." So I had to get my phone out and Google and show that a F111 is actually longer than a Lancaster. So at a 30-second scale, it's going to be a meter long. And he was like, oh, okay. And then the next chap was like, what's going to be your first 70-second scale model? And same thing. I said, well, what do you think? He goes, oh, I don't know. And so this is a different chap. And so he goes around and he comes back and he says, I've got it. A DH7 Caribou. And because, of course, Australia flew them. I was like, I love the Caribou. By the way, there's a kit already. He goes, oh, yeah, but you can't get them. And I was like, yeah, maybe that's not going to be our first 72nd scale model, but we'll put it on the list. So, yes, we're going to do it. We're going to do other scales for sure. And we're going to, it's logical to look at scaling up or down the data that we already have. So Richard wants to do a 72nd scale Spitfire. I'm a little bit Spitfired out at the moment. So we'll get to other scales very soon. And the Halifax, of course, has already announced a 48 scale.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one, actually.
Best news ever.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As soon as I seen that, I was like a kid in a sweet shop.
Oh, great. Yeah, it's been a trip this last week. Everybody's opinion on announcing it, before we've even started work on it. But there's reasons. There's lots of good reasons, I hope.
It certainly makes sense. Okay, Dan.
You've explained to us, Mark, and I think we're beginning to realise just how much effort and hard work goes into putting a product to market. It's so interesting to hear your process. I think you touched on it a little bit in the previous question, using the Hurricane as an example, what would you say has been the biggest challenge in getting Kōtare kits from concept to customers' workbenches?
Ooh, okay. One thing I didn't realize when we started is that translating the CAD into metal still takes hard physical work by craftspeople in the factory, and as we said in China, but it doesn't matter where. It could be Ukraine, could be anywhere. So I sort of had this vision that you just press a button and a machine would mill the metal and create a mold, but it's nowhere near that simple. And working with a Chinese company, there's a language barrier, although the people we talk to have got very good English. But when they go to their craftspeople on the shop floor, the engineering shop floor, and say, Richard wants these rivets to be slightly less prominent or slightly more prominent, or this panel under the 109 wing sits slightly proud, but not that proud, like the first test shot. So you've got this, how do you translate your vision of the aeroplane into CAD in the first instance? And then how do you translate the CAD into metal? And the test shot process is infuriating. And I know this is true for all the companies. I'm not talking about our partners in China specifically. The test shots come and then you go, well, that's not right. Why did they do it like that? And then even that one thing is another month before the next test shot comes. So the first test shot report on the first Spitfire, I think, had 256 items. And Richard and Darren do this. One day I'm going to hope we can actually publish one of their test shot reports, maybe, a historical one like that first Spitfire one. It is a massive piece of work in its own right. Images of the kit part, images of the CAD, red lines going, it should look like this, 1 millimeter here, 0.5 millimeter there, emphasize this, de-emphasize that. And so that goes to China, then the next test shot comes, and then the next test shot report is down to 73 items. And infuriatingly, sometimes they haven't addressed some of the issues in the first test shot report. And you're going, well, why didn't you fix that? But we know they're working to a budget as well. And they're like, oh, Kōtare want this by the 20th. Let's get it out and we'll fix them in the next round. So then you got test shot number 3, test shot number 4, test shot number 5, and you're getting closer and closer to perfection. But each round takes a month or more. Then 5 days shipping from China, 3 or 4 days for the guys to build it, write the test shot report. So it's infuriatingly slow from a business owner point of view, and an enthusiast point of view, because you want these kits out there on the market, people building them. So that process of turning electrons into metal is quite frustrating, and I'm learning. And then allied to that, again, sorry to mention it, but there's the money. So, you're paying these very talented people salary, and meanwhile, we're trying to fix 27 things on the mold before we can actually sell any of them. And each round of test shots, mostly it's covered in the mold cost, right? But if you find something, so on the meshes, we found something just, like I said before, a week before we were due to go into production. And luckily it was a minor change, but it's still, the manufacturer was like, why didn't you mention this before? And I was like, sorry, we didn't notice it. So, and quite properly, they charged me X $100 to change that part. Every change that is not the manufacturer's fault, like if they've got it wrong, they have to fix it. But if we've missed something or we find something or we get a new photo, it's more money on the cost. So it's, yeah, those two things I think are a lot linked. The frustration of how long it takes to get the perfect pet, or as close to perfect as you can, and then how much does it cost to do that? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. I think from the sounds of it, you're balancing obviously cost, but you're obviously putting your heart and soul into this as well. And all of the big brands that we know that do this right and do it well seem to have the same philosophy. And you are fast becoming one of those names that we all,
oh, wow,
that's on the tip of our tongue as well. You know, the first time I looked, I'll be honest with you, I haven't actually built a Kōtare kit yet. And the first time I looked in a box, I was like,
okay.
It was that, wow, this is absolutely stunning. And the first thing that jumped out to me was this is a real premium product and this is going to be an experience. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, that's really pleasing to hear. Thank you. It is a heart and soul thing. Richard and Darren, they do hard work. This is, they concentrate all day. For me, though, it's fun. And especially compared to my day job, I'm an internal medicine specialist, and there's a lot of, how can I say it? There's a lot of death. There's a lot of grief with, putting out animals to sleep and things like that. So even finding the 256 things on the test shot is a fun thing because it's making a model, is that coming over right? So it's light relief for me. So I come home, have a quick go gym or play tennis, come home, have a quick dinner, and then I start working on Kōtare, but it doesn't feel like work. And one of the things I'm hoping I can get somebody else to work with me in the practice, because I'm a late night guy. When sometimes at midnight, I'll be flying on the instructions or putting a kit together, and I'm like, I could do this till 6 a.m, but I can't because I have to get up and go to work. But I'd like to have a little bit more flexibility that when like a recording artist that's just got a riff and you want to get it laid down and you go through till 3 o'clock in the morning, you just want to keep working on it. So it is a passion project as well as a business, and I can't wait I'm hoping to get to Telford this year, that we've booked a table, and I'm almost sure I'm coming. And I just can't wait to interact with modelers and see the models on the table and have that experience where they pick up a test shot on the table in front of you and get that, their eyes go, wow, that looks nice. So it is a passion as well.
You say you're coming to Telford. As the official podcast for IPMS UK, we will also be there. So hopefully we can catch up and actually have a face-to-face. And
absolutely, love to.
And the question is, what are you announcing as the next new model at Telford? Or is there an announcement?
I'm hoping to. I've got a little bit of a marketing thing happening. We're hoping to be simultaneously at Scale, ACT in Canberra, and at Telford. So Darren was going to come, but he's had some family things come up. So it's probably just going to be me and maybe a couple of willing volunteers from the UK. And I haven't been to the IPMS UK National since 1995 when it was at Stoneleigh. And so I'm coming to experience the show. So if anybody's listening to this, I'm going to have a sign on our table. Mark will be here, 2 hours on, 1 hour off or something like that, because I'm going to be out looking at the models. I love that. But yeah, I'll be happy to talk to anybody and we can sit down and have a little chat. And if things go right, we will be announcing something, yes.
Mark, how important is feedback from the modelling community to Kōtare, and has it ever influenced a design decision or a future release?
Oh, good question. Really important. In fact, my phone just pinged somebody from the local club is just pinging me about the colour call-outs on the 109. Massively important feedback. So with the 109, I did something that we hadn't done previously. So we sent test shot kits out to Scott Samo of the Model Geeks, Sam Dwyer in Australia, Drew Manton in the UK, one of our local very good modelers here in Auckland, Lynn Ritka in America, and Brett Green at Hyperscale. So they were all building test shots, second test shots, which were, they were good. They were good test shots. And some of their comments were incorporated into the changes in the 109 between second test shot and fifth test shot. So that was partly because of all these things we're not sure about with the K. It's such a poorly documented airframe. So I've taken that a step further with the Halifax announcement. So the first 500 people with pre-order, we're going to randomly draw 20 names, and they will be offered the opportunity to build a second test shot. So we're not, some people, there's a funny thing where we've had a little bit of negative feedback. Like, why did you pick Sam Dwyer to build your, it was like, because I was chatting to him online and he sounded interested. It wasn't a great patronage strategy. It was just, he was interested. Scott Samo, same. It's like, I'd love to build a test shot. Okay, here you go. So we're not trying to deny people the joy of being involved, but this Halifax thing will that's the protocol, so to speak. With other things, so for instance, Lynn Ritka, who's a massive name in 109 folklore, he's been hugely helpful. So he looked at the CAD, he's looked at the instructions many times, saved me from making a couple of really stupid mistakes in the instructions. Brett Green sent us a detailed feedback on the instructions, the decals, and the kit itself. Yeah, I think you can get the point. Feedback is massive. And then in terms of subject choice, I already gave you those stories from Australia, but I listen all the time. I look at the modeling websites. We've got, our own Facebook and then the other Facebook pages. So I'm constantly scanning for what do people think of our choice? What do they think of our model? The things that are wrong in the 109 instructions that are coming out, they'll be corrected on the next production run. So, yeah, feedback's really important. So right from day one with the 109, people were talking about a G10. And please be aware that I'm no Messerschmitt expert. So I've had to delve pretty deeply into what is the difference between a K4 and a G10. And then, within the G10 subspecies, so to speak, what are the variations? There's a lot of misunderstandings about how easy it is to change a mold or just suddenly put out a new version. Those who know the late Messerschmitts know that the K cockpit was substantially different from the G. And so I think we've calculated that it's at least 40 parts different to do a G10 from a K4, but we're probably going to do it. Not sure when. The other thing that relates to that is designer time. We need more designers. Because when you say turn a K4 into a G10, you're probably looking at 3 months of design work. So what is that going to delay over here in order to do that? Or can we find another designer? Can we afford another designer? So I think you can say a G10 is on the horizon, but there's no active work on it right now for anybody who's really interested in that. Other philosophies about design choice, I've got to like the airplane. I'm 61. I've got only so many years left. I've got heaps of airplanes I want to do. I'm not going to do an airplane just for commercial reasons. I'll name one just to get it out of the way. Somebody was chatting about this in the Halifax threads. I personally don't like the Avro Lincoln. Sorry if you're an Avro Lincoln fan. I just don't think it looks right. While I'm alive, we won't be doing a Lincoln. So in any scale, that's gonna really offend a few people. I'm sorry about that.
Could be strapline, that.
I hate. Yeah, no Lincoln. Okay, closer to home, much respect to Airfix for doing a two-seat Spitfire. I really want to fly in a two-seat Spitfire. I'm hoping to afford that one day. But I think the two-seat Spitfire looks awful. So we're never going to do a two-seat Spitfire. I know why it looks like it does, but I don't think it looks nice. I've already said I love the 50s. I could just spend the rest of my life modeling the 50s, both as a modeler building kits and as a kit manufacturer. Take that as a theme. I've already said about airliners. They're going to have to be dotted in with the other things. I've said elsewhere, and I'm developing the idea. Remember, Matchbox kits, and people are under the thumbs up, Wongi. People are under the misapprehension that Matchbox didn't make money, but they did. It was their plastic kit set line was very profitable. Well, profitable. The reason why that company went under was nothing to do with the plastic airplane line. So their concept of 4 or 5 bankers, a Mesh Focke-Wulf, Spitfire, a Mustang, then a Fairey Seafox, then a Lancaster, a Heinkel, then a Hayford. I think that's able to be followed, that you get some money in the bank to take a risk, and then hopefully the risk pays off as well, and then you can take another risk. I'd love to do a 32nd scale Wyvern. I love the Wyvern, the Sea Vixen. Can you imagine a Sea Vixen in 32nd scale? I love a Sea Vixen. But they are, massive risks. And by the way, there is no design work happening on either of those aircraft right now. So, so it's an airplane I've got to like, which is a lot, hundreds of different airplanes, something that hasn't been done to death already, although, we'll find our niche. And then underappreciated, I'm getting a bit of flack for choosing a Mark II Halifax instead of a Mark III. But I think the Halifax is massively underappreciated. And of the Halifax breed, the Mark II, or Mark I, Mark II, were underappreciated compared to the Mark III. So that's why we've gone with the Mark II first. And as I've said several times now online, a lot of brave guys died trying to do a job in that aeroplane. And they need to be, in a small way, with a plastic aeroplane, recognised. Yeah, what do you think? What do you reckon we should do next in 32nd scale? You guys, what?
Well, I know what Mike would like, and it's something to do with an F4.
A US bomber for me.
There's a design already done for a 32nd scale F4K/M. I know the person who did it, but I'm not sure that it's in the manufacturer's books for upcoming release. But of to do one, there is already one design, so we've got to be careful. Got to be careful there.
You like the Jaguar, Mark?
Seppicat Jaguar or BAC Jaguar or the Jaguar car?
Seppicat Jaguar, yeah.
BAC, yeah, Jaguar car.
Yeah, I love Jaguar cars. So if we had to go to a different genre altogether, I'd be a large scale line of Jaguar car models. I love the Jaguar aircraft, always have. So I'd love to do one in 32nd scale. Again, there is no design work happening on a Jaguar right now, but I haven't got an Airfix one yet, but I can't wait. I'm going to have to wait, but I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, what else? 72nd scale aircraft, what do you reckon? Mike, 72nd scale aircraft.
I think something that we were talking about airliners, is a Comet.
Yes, 72nd Comet.
172nd Comet, you could do a conversion to a Nimrod. You could also do, as it was the same fuselage, you could do a Caravel.
I love the Comet. Love the Comet. 72nd scale Comet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the Nimrod. Love the Comet. So I've got a theme in mind. I haven't mentioned this already. The world's most beautiful airplanes. I actually canvassed all our group last year. Concorde, late Mark Spitfire, P-51D, a Fairey Phantom. I love the airplane. Comet. So just a line of kit sets titled The World's Most Beautiful Airplanes, and just have that running for the next 20 years. That would be cool. Yeah. So, okay. I'll take those suggestions.
Would there be anything in the works for a helicopter?
I'm not the world's biggest helicopter fans, but there's some helicopters I really like. The Belvedere, a large-scale Belvedere. But here's the thing. I was thinking about this the other day. How the helicopter market has gone 1/35th scale. No, I don't quite get it. I just, if we do helicopters, they'll be in one of the standard aircraft scales, 32, 48, or 72.
Good man.
Are they not doing 35th for the whole diorama side of things?
Yes.
It says that's what it is, Luke.
That's what they're kind of rolling with. I mean, I haven't seen anyone
I know
really do many dioramas with them, but they're doing it nonetheless.
Well, I'm an aircraft guy, so I'd turn it around the other way. If we were going to do a 32nd scale helicopter, we'd probably do some 32nd scale vehicles to go with it, or commission some to be done. Don't get me wrong, I totally know why there's 35th scale happening, but it's not ours. We'll stick to the standard scales.
I know what you should do in 32nd as your first jet.
Go.
F-86.
But yes.
A decent, high-quality F-86, because it's been lacking for so long and you've got so many variants and so many markets you could actually hit with it.
The Australian Sabre,
the Avon Sabre.
Which was completely different.
Yeah. We had just about started design on a 48 scale F-86A when the clear prop one was announced. Very much on my mind. We've got an F-86F actually in New Zealand. There's one remaining F-86A left in the world, or one original one. It's in a tiny little museum in Ohio. And I actually had a itinerary planned, at least on paper, to go and visit that aircraft and scan it. So I think it's a very hot prospect for a 32nd scale kit. Again, no design work is happening on that right now. But yes. What you say, though, Mike, about an Australian one, though, immediately as a person who commissions the manufacture of molds, that's basically a whole new airplane. So you're talking, a mold for the standard F-86s and then a new mold for an Australian Avon, but maybe that's doable in 48 scale, maybe. So, yeah. Okay, duly noted.
Buccaneer 32nd?
Yes.
Oh, that's going to be a nice one.
I'm so glad you said yes to that then, Mark.
Yeah. But nothing's been designed, Mike. All right. That's the second words.
No, I know, but there's whore. That's all I'm clinging on to is the whore. That obviously people have got passion about aircraft, and the subjects I've mentioned that I've got is yes from them. And like the Civics and the Wyvern, absolutely belters of aircraft. Absolutely superb.
I have a vivid memory. I worked in England in 95, 96, and I was a good friend in Newcastle, so I spent some time up in that coastline. 2 Buccaneers blasting over the beach just north of Newcastle at low level. And I don't know about you guys, but much as I love air shows, it's almost like seeing wildlife on a safari versus in a zoo. So when you're seeing 2 aircraft in the wild, so to speak, it just left such a visceral memory of these aircraft doing what they were designed to do. And so, yeah, I've built the original FX Buccaneer in Fleet Era markings, and will eventually build the FX 48 scale one. Yeah, I'd love to do a Buccaneer in 32nd scale, but you know how big it is, right? It's a big aeroplane.
Fold the wings, don't take that much space then.
Just long. That's all it is. Just long.
Yeah, it is long. By the way, with any naval aircraft we do, we will supply 2 sets of wings. One of the things I hate is building an aircraft with the wings spread and having to use the parts that are designed to do either way. They never fit right. So we will have folded wing option and extended wing option in every naval aircraft that we do.
Ooh, cool.
There you go. There's a scoop.
It would be great if you could have the wings so that you could detach them and have a selection so you can store it in the cupboard.
Well, the Border, it is now the Border Lancaster, which was the Wingnut Wings Lancaster. That was designed from day one for the wings to be able to be popped on and off for transport.
Yeah. Makes storage so much easier. Yeah.
You can do that with the HK 148 B-17 as well.
And as far as 48th jets, one thing that's really lacking is a decent 148th Canberra. The Airfix kit's an absolute stinker.
Absolutely. Okay, so again, I know it sounds like everything you mentioned, I go, I love that. Well, I love a lot of airplanes. So yeah, I've had some dialogue with a Canberra expert on Brit Modeler. You probably know who it is, but I won't mention the name. And very much on my mind because we flew Canberras here, of course, and lots of colour schemes for Canberras. So 48th and 72nd, 32. Can you imagine how big a 32nd scale Canberra would be?
Too big.
Be cool though. It would be cool.
I've got one for you actually.
Yep.
So this goes back to your Matchbox days.
Yes.
I always remember the Strike Master New Zealand one.
The Blunty, as they call them.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was the box art on the Matchbox kit just really grabbed me. It was just fantastic.
I love that whole I love everything. I love that whole line of aircraft. And my good friend over here, Craig Sargent, who does our 3D printing for us, he's ex-RNZAF ground crew, so he worked on Strike Masters. So he's angling for us to do a Strike Master. Of course, we can scan one here. So I've got the FX Jet Provost. Do you say Provost or Provo?
Provost.
So I've got a FX JP3, which I'm going to do in air display team markings, the Macaws. So I'd like to expand that line into 48th and 32nd. So again, no design work is happening on that right now. When we get more designers, they'll be definitely on the list.
I'm going to retrain.
Vampire, 30-second vampire,
But
a T-bird.
when we decided on the Hurricane, the other number one prospect was a vampire. Ooh, boring. I love the vampire. Yeah, and we have them here as well. So, and if you're going to do them, you do single seat and twin seat and a night fighter. So, vampire tick.
You also do the Venom.
One important thing for the Vampire fuselage, it actually says in the AP, because the forward fuselage is wood covered in fabric and dope, is to apply the dope liberally to actually improve the airflow. So there's very little in the way of panel lines on the fuselage that makes it nice and simple.
I think it'll be a quick design, and partly for that reason. So, and so many color schemes and so many unit markings. I've got the Vampires. I've got the FX T11 in paint. I've got the Hella FP5 on my shelf of Doom. It's been there for 40 years. I've got a classic airframes 48 scale one ready to paint. There's probably another one lurking around somewhere. So I've got a long history with Vampires.
Mark, last question. The recently announced 148 Handley Page Halifax marks not only a different scale for Kōtare, but a multi-engine bomber is quite a departure from the single-engine fighters. We've had a question in from one of our benchmates in the USA that's tried to register for the project, but sadly can't for some reason. Is there a workaround, and do you see this crowdfunding project as a route forward for future releases?
Okay, so now I've got to be really careful not to get political, because I do intend to travel to the USA and we don't want them going through this podcast as I stand in the immigration in LA. So you guys all know the situation. And so our problem is the several-fold. So one is, are our products going to be classed as a product of New Zealand or a product of China? And all the information is pointing towards the majority origin of the product. So our products will be classed as Chinese products. So currently that negotiation is still happening between America and China. But so we're told currently the tariff is 30%. And so for a big subject, a big kit, that's a lot of money for a modeler to put on top of our retail price. But we don't know what to charge. So the Americans, we've had to say we can't take orders at the moment because we don't know whether to charge 15%, which is the New Zealand rate, or 30%, which is currently the Chinese tariff rate, or what will it be when we just start shipping this kit in somewhere around between 2 and 3 years from now. And admin-wise, can you imagine trying to go back to a modeler 2 years from now and say, oh, actually the tariff is more than we charged you. Can you send us some more money, please? Or we need to refund you $27.50. How do we do that? So we're told that we're going to get some definitive information this next week. And as a manufacturer, as a businessman, it pains me greatly that Americans want to give me money and can't. So we're very, very anxious to get that sorted. So maybe by the time this podcast drops, it will already be sorted. But we're sympathetic and aware. We've had lots of private messages as well as what you see on Facebook and the websites. So at the moment, all I can say is there'll be plenty of opportunity to buy. The model is not going to sell out this week. Well, be nice if it did, but it's not going to. So they'll just be patient is what I can say. And then as a model, as a funding model, obviously we don't want to do this too often because it makes it look like we're potentially ripping people off, which we're not. So this one is about producing something that's a risk for me. So you say, why hasn't there been a 48 scale Halifax done already apart from the FM one? It's because it's a risk, and so I'm not Peter Jackson, and the mold is an order of magnitude more expensive than a 32nd scale single seat fighter. A design time, minimum 18 months of a full-time designer minimum. And so it's a massive project. And if people want to help out with the risk, we're very grateful. It's a form of, if you like, risk sharing, where I'm still taking a big risk, but every modeler that signs up is also taking a small risk. And in the end, we get something that we weren't going to get otherwise. By standard funding methods, it would probably be 10 years before I could afford to do a Halifax. This way, there should be a Halifax arriving on people's doorsteps in 2028, and everybody that gets one will know that they contributed to making it happen. And hopefully that will be rewarding to people apart from being able to build the model. So yeah, we won't do it much, but there'll be other subjects that are regarded as major risks that we fund in this way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Do you know, Mark, this morning I was talking to my missus that we were going to interview, and I was reading a little bit on your website and stuff. And she said, and I told her that what you were doing, I sort of explained the whole crowdfunding thing. And she said, "Oh, you're going to get one?" I said, "No, it's not really my thing." And you know what? I can honestly say, after talking to you, I'm just thinking I might have a little look later on and good, consider my, because good. Yeah, no, I can see it. I really, after we've spoken to other people, and when you get a sense that someone cares about what happens when we open that box, that's enough for me. Because in my trade, in my job, is all about finishing that room for someone and going, there you go. And they go, wow, it's great. And that just, that means a lot. Yeah.
What do you do?
I'm a painter and decorator. But so my sort of attention to detail is always there. But yeah, maybe I'm a big heavy US bomber fan because I live in East Anglia.
Oh, okay. Yes, of course.
And we're obviously surrounded by 8th air bases, but yeah, maybe I'll go up into Bomber County a little bit further, and
if you choose to, great. And then you become effectively part of Project Halifax. You're part of the team. So people are already suggesting. What's really touching is all the messages coming out about my uncle flew in one, or my grandfather died in one, and would you consider these markings? So one of my reasons for doing it this way is that I actually don't have a crystal clear idea of what markings should be in the kit. So, and we'll have more than our normal. I'm saying that's another scoop for you guys. We'll have at least 6 decal schemes in the kit. And so everybody can put forward their uncle's aeroplane or their grandfather's aeroplane, especially if they have photos or logbooks or things like that. So in the groups that develop out of this, as everybody signs up for this project, there'll be a dialogue about what precise subvariants can we fit in the kit and what decal schemes are we going to do. And I hope people get a lot out of that, being able to actually help decide what the model ends up looking like.
Fantastic. Okay, then you've already alluded to you've had multiple aircraft that you've been building recently. What's currently on your bench?
I've got the worst habits of any modeler, not any modeler I know, but that joke now, squirrel, follow the new subject. So in your wheelhouse, Paul, I've got a ridiculous number of meteors in my life. So I've got the Tamiya Meteor converted to the C Meteor. That is so close to being finished. That it just needs a little bit of weathering and a flat coat, and that's done. I've got the FX F8 in paints, almost ready for decaling. I've got 2 of our Mark 1 early Spitfires ready for final weathering. One of them will come to Telford. I've got my 109 in a little bit of primer at the moment. It doesn't need much. So that's going to be in the box top scheme. We had a visit from a C5 in Auckland last week, which it was really heartening to see the aviation enthusiasm. So there were massive traffic jams around Whenuapai as this Galaxy came in, delivering some parts for the Hercules simulator that we're getting. And so I was able to pull down my Otaki 144 scale C5 from the cabinet, which is in paint, but has been sitting in the same state since 1989. So that has to get finished one day. So I have so many half-finished kits. I have to just get disciplined. When I built the FX Sea Vixen, I promised myself I would finish it before touching another airplane. And I spent 11 months on it. It's still not finished. And since then, I've started 25 other models. I'm terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Oh, I think you take after all of us, to be fair.
Welcome to the club.
You're amongst friends here, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've somehow found as well in my little, I don't know if you can see this, my RAF logbook from World War II.
Yeah.
A couple of Halifax flights in there. So I don't know if you can see.
Oh, yeah. Whose is that?
It is, it's a weird story, but kind of like a great uncle along those sort of lines. So
Okay.
I'll have to dig those out and send some photos around to everyone because,
Oh, cool.
anyway, there you go.
Okay, Mark. Well, thank you for sharing your story, your insights, and your passion with us today. Kōtare has already made a huge impact on the modelling world, and it's clear the journey has only just begun. We'll be watching and building whatever comes next with eager hands and empty wallets. Mark, thank you very much for your time, and hopefully you'll be a friend of the pod, and we'll have you back on again in the next time we've got an announcement.
Thank you all, and I'll be happy to be on again at your convenience.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Cheers, Mark. Thank you, mate.
Bye-bye.
See you in November.
See you at Telford, Mark.
Hopefully, we'll sit down together, have a beer.
Well, that's it for episode 9. I think it's fair to say we've had 2 amazing guests, and with the news that Martin is joining the team, I think you'll agree it's a fantastic addition to the show. And what have we got lined up for you in episode 10, I hear you shout? Well, we're keeping this one a surprise. But all I will say is we have a fantastic collection of guests lined up and look forward to speaking to each and every one of them in the very near future. If you can't wait till episode 10 drops to find out, follow us on our socials and you'll find out faster. Till then, keep the modelling bench as clean as your minds. Okay, that's a fail to start with. Time to say our goodbyes, so we'll start off with Luke.
Bye-bye.
Dan.
See you, everyone. Just remember, every model you build is just practice for the next one.
Boulders.
See you next time, folks.
And Wongi.
Bye, everyone. And remember, 60 parts or less.
And for myself, thank you for listening and see you on the next one. Bye-bye. How are you finding the 109 then, Luke?
Oh, it is phenomenal, honestly.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
Because I went to Mark's on Sunday. Obviously, Mark's on holiday, that's why he's not on.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, let's have a look at that. And I just went, and he went, what? I said, look at the quality of that. And when he said, you know, he wants people to say wow, and I was thinking to myself, yeah, people don't say wow in the UK, they go,
Oh yeah. It's honestly, it's great. I mean, the cockpit is literally done. You know, after 3 hours, it's like fully weathered, and it looks pretty good. I haven't rushed it or anything.
And Luke.
Hello.
sorry, that was just funny. Sorry, that was just when Luke said hello then, and it just tickled me. Sorry.
Hello. Very northern there, Luke.
Hello.